All right, welcome back, Truth Seeker. NFL Week 9. In terms of the work I did this week, I always put in the work, but in terms of the result, I'd say pretty mediocre result. But the thing is, when we have a mediocre week, it's still typically better than most gamblers' best days. And that's because we have an unfair advantage. We learned something about this scripting of these games, which the announcers are always referencing when they say they couldn't have scripted it any better. Again, once upon a time, I opened up a book written in 1926 by Manly P. Hall, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. And he revealed something very interesting about the language and secret societies and encouraged the author or the reader of his work to investigate. And that's the language of letters and numbers, Gematria. So I just want you to see how using this knowledge, how you can get ahead of the script. And there was a pattern with numbers that does hit in week nines, but it doesn't hit every single year. And that's why understanding this knowledge is very helpful, but it's not a perfect science. And some days we're right about what the overall league-wide script is, we absolutely dominate. And those are the days where people are hitting their $10 parlay that pays over 1,000. And people in our community, I would say almost everyone in this community that does this work from the start of the year to the end of the year, they have at least one really big weekend where they hit a parlay like that. Some people do it several times over the course of the season. But again, today was a mediocre day. And for people who were not here in the beginning, once upon a time, for people who were here pre-fall 2018, I did all this work for free. I had so many hours of live streams that back then used to get views teaching this knowledge and how the games are rigged. Since the fall of 2018, for people who don't know the story, I used to be a teacher. I got kicked out of my profession essentially for writing a book. In the fall of 2018, I began charging a measly rate of $5 a month for people who wanted the sports information. And immediately I had a good number of customers because there's a lot of people who'd been watching me for the years before that and who'd been winning with this knowledge. They already knew it was legit. So they were happy to chip in $5. And if you guys actually follow my Patreon, you'll hear callers routinely say, Zach, when are you going to start charging us more? And again, even in the time of inflation, where everything's way more expensive, I haven't raised my price. I would have always done this for free had things not changed in my life in the fall of 2018 when I got kicked out of my profession and I had the FBI come to my house, which also really pissed off Sweet Lady. And she said, you need to start charging for what you're doing because look, now you don't even have a livelihood. And again, since then, I've also been trolled nonstop. And we know the trolls that work 24/7, 365. One's already working on his video about what I guarantee he'll put out a video about what a horrible week of picks Zach had, as he does each week, cherry picks what was wrong and ignores everything that was right. And then he puts up titles like, I'm the fraud. Yeah. Okay. Faceless loser whose whole channel is talking shit about me while totally slandering me and skipping everything that's good. It was 2 Thursdays ago. We went 6-2 for picks for the day, and he put out a video about what a very horrible day my community had. Where is 6-2 a horrible day? This guy is the ultimate troll. But anyway, before I even go off on the troll, what I'd rather say before I start going over this is, you guys, do you remember being in the classroom once upon a time when you had a teacher and the teacher's up on the chalkboard or the whiteboard or the overhead or probably now on the computer that's showing the words up on the screen? But the teacher made a mistake and you raised your hand and you said, hey, teacher, that doesn't make sense. And the teacher looked at it and he said, good eyes, I'm glad you're paying attention. And then he fixed it. Or, again, all teachers have students and some students aspire to be greater than the teacher. Again, understand there's people in this community who now have their own Patreon pages. There's the Victors of the world who once upon a time used to be a caller. And I told Victor, I said, go out and start your own page, man. You're really good at this. He would call into my show and he'd have a really great observation. And I'd say, man, what a great find. I still remember what I thought was the best Victor call ever. And I couldn't believe that I didn't recognize it in my own state. But Victor called in. He's like, hey, Zach, it's 11-11. Seahawks on prime time, big underdogs against the 49ers. And it's Washington State's birthday. And he said, look at Pete Carroll's record. If he wins, he's going to get his 140th all-time win, 130th regular season win, and Gematria. Washington equals 130 when you run the alphabetic order forwards, 140 in reverse. And I said, what a $1 million observation. And then sometimes I had to slap myself because I'm like, how didn't I see that? I'm here in Washington State. He's in New York City. And you know what? There's a lot of gentlemen that night that remember Victor's call because they went big on the underdog Seahawks, who were a nice payout that night on primetime, and they went home very happy. And before Victor called in, I still remember I was torn on that game. I was looking at two things. I was just like, oh, man, I can't pull the trigger on this one, but the Seahawks do have some value. I was saying that, and then Victor called in with the Washington thing, and I was like, well, I think we know what time it is now. And you know what's funny? The same troll that I'm talking about, he actually made a video specifically saying that I was a liar about that game. It didn't help anybody out. And it's like, man, I'm a liar, huh? So he was watching the same radio show where Victor called in, and then we got enthusiastic after that information, and then other people called in the next week, and he watches every stream to troll. But they called in the next week and were like, man, that was a great call with the Seahawks. I made a fat one because the Seahawks paid like 3.5 to 1 that night. They were considerable dogs. When I think that was the year San Francisco. I got to go back and double check. It was either the year that San Francisco played the Chiefs in the Super Bowl or the year before, but it was around that time period. Anyway, there's the Victors of the world. There's the Rods of the world. By the way, if you guys don't know the website, GematriaEffectNews.com. I actually did not make that website. Jeremy White, who's pounded pavement with me in New Orleans, Dallas, New York City, who's been with me since the year Super Bowl 50, where we called it in October. Who's the MVP? What two teams? Who's winning? Jeremy White's been with me ever since then because he found the work back when it was free, just like a lot of people. And he made, probably his best payday ever in the world of sports futures. And there's a lot of people in this community that can say the exact same thing since they found this knowledge. And what's awesome is there's now people teaching the knowledge who know their sports better, like hockey, and are killing futures there. Shout out to Luxie in Pittsburgh, who learned from yours truly, who's really good with the NHL. Jeff Berwick, the dollar vigilante. The only time he ever talked about Gematria was thanks to Luxie, who helped him hit a huge NHL future. And go figure, Luxie, an intelligent human being, just like the people in this community who found the work and helped out. And shout out to Arthur, Simple Truth TV. I remember when Arthur made his name in the Sports Gematria game. He said what Zach's missing on the Warriors-Raptors finals is Drake, and how this is synced up with his album that came out the day, I forget if it was the day Kawhi Leonard's birthday or the day Kawhi Leonard signed with the Raptors, but the whole clue was in the Drake album, and Drake calls Toronto the sixth, and they won in Game 6 that year. And remember, Steph Curry met his sweet lady up in Toronto when his daddy used to play for the Raptors. Shout out to Damon Stoudemire, Rookie of the Year. He was my hero as a kid. He went to high school in Portland. Rookie of the Year with the Raptors. Ended up playing with the Portland Trail Blazers. And he's the same graduating class as my sister. He was at Arizona when she started college. And anyway, I could say a lot more about Damon. But anyway, let's go through this. I'm just saying, shout out to the people who've learned the work, who've built up their own little Gematria sports empire, who've been doing it for years, been teaching it. It's sad that there's so many people that denounce this work while knowing absolutely nothing about it. And again, let's just go through what a mediocre week looks like. Last week was a great week for us. Week 7 was a great week for us. Today wasn't even that bad. It's just, I knew it was going to be tight, and that's why for a lot of games I wrote close call. But here's how it is. So for people who are new, this is what I do for all these games. Not only do I again, you guys, I charge $5 a month. That's about 15 cents a day. This stuff takes hours of research. You're getting a lot of value for $5. You're learning life-changing knowledge. And that's the one thing I can say is the bad thing about putting all this out for all these years for free and for a cheap price. So many people have learned about it that things have actually become more difficult in recent years to call. And people know that. In the years that I was here for free, I rarely made a fool of myself. I was rarely wrong about a game. And again, nobody was talking about this. After about 3 years of doing this, you had all sorts of people popping up starting to talk about it, and it's getting a lot bigger and a lot bigger and a lot bigger. And finally, there's some channels out there that are getting views doing this. Again, the only city I'm recognized in America is Las Vegas. I get kind of spooked out when I go down there because people recognize me because a lot of sports gamblers follow my work. But for all of you guys who think this stuff's a joke, and by the way, RIP to Coy Gibbs. I know you saw my video earlier on the death of the singer in the bathtub the day of the World Series. And if you missed that, you better go back and watch that because it's even more important than this video. But now Coy Gibbs follows the exact same pattern. Instead of being dead at age 34, he's dead 34 days from his birthday. Again, in Gematria Murders 34. His daddy, it's a lot to explain, but Coy Gibbs died in his sleep on the day leaving 56 days left in the year. NASCAR equals 56, just like how Aaron Carter's dead 56 months after his last album came out. Anyway, from the sports to the news to the ritual murder, it's the same knowledge to see through this stuff. And again, Jesuits and Masons, you guys, secret societies, modern Freemasonry is a Jesuit creation, American football credited to the Scottish Rite Freemason Walter Camp. The secret societies are there from the beginning of the sport. These leagues, plenty of members still active. You got to read between the lines and see what's going on. That's why I looked into Manly P. Hall, a Mason who shared information about the secret societies. Research his own work and see if it's true. I researched what he was talking about in a book from 1926, and I found out a lot. And it looks to be 1,000,000% true. Anyway, I go through all these games. I look at the head-to-head. I look at the last time they met, what kind of win streaks they're on. This meeting was 41 weeks after their playoff game. Remember the Rams and Bucks playoff game last year? The Rams were blowing out the Bucks. Then the Bucks rallied back a whole bunch of points to make it a close game. Maybe it's going to go to OT, but then the Rams go down like the whole field to Cooper Cup back-to-back, like 2 plays down the whole field. WWE. But anyway, this was 41 weeks after the last meeting. LA equals 41. Huge Super Bowl number. Brady won the Super Bowl at age 41. Again, over LA. Stafford came into this game on 41 road wins. So things like that sit with me. So I'm like, if Stafford loses, he stays on those 41 road wins. Big number with the history. And again, veterans in the community, like if you're newer to my work and these patterns are less familiar to you, things aren't going to register in your brain, but you stay with it for years, like a lot of people have now. They start to be like, oh yeah, I know what that 41's all about. But you do got to look at other things. The Bucks could have possibly fallen to 7-9 at home. 79 can be a big number in Tampa Bay. Then again, like I teach people, 7-9 is not the same as 79, but we do see how a lot of times things do fall that way. So you got to kind of look at the numbers that are there, and you're trying to form the best opinion. Stafford could pick up his 55th away loss all time. By the way, I look at the regular season quarterback starts and the all-time starts, which include the postseason. So Stafford, he was on 41 away wins in the regular season, 43 if you include the postseason. And remember, Brady went down to Florida at 43, and Florida equals 43. And the 43rd governor was Jeb Bush, where the election came down to his state for the election of the 43rd president, his brother, George W. Bush. And their daddy was the 43rd vice president. Yale equals 43. And Prescott, George H.W. and George W. Bush all went to Yale and were members of Skull and Bones, like Astros equals 43, like Carter's 43, like Bathtub's 43, like Coy's 43, like Coy's dead the day the Astros win, the day Aaron Carter dies in the bathtub. Skull and Bones, known as the Brotherhood of Death. A phrase that equals 187, like the homicide code, like Whitney Houston in the bathtub on the 187th day of her age. But anyway, you look at these patterns, and I always try to be fair by it. I try to look at it both ways. Sometimes everything just looks like a one-way street. And as we'll get to when we get to the Jaguars game, I felt like that was the game of the day. That's the one that I wrote. I really like this game. And we'll get to why I like that game so much. But you got to look. You got to be fair. And that is the downside of this, right? There's a lot of numbers to analyze. But most weeks we get the majority of games right, which is something very few gamblers can say. So anyhow, the Bucks getting to 4-5 while Tom Brady was 45 years old, the man who played the majority of his career with New England, which in Gematria equals 45 when you run the alphabetic order forwards and backwards, him getting to 4-5 in week 9 made sense to me. Again, 45 is the 9th triangular number, week 9. Also, it stood out to me that they could become 2-3 at home. Brady equals 23. 23 is the 9th prime number. And at the very top of these notes, you have the numbers to know for the week. 81, square root of 9. 45, 9th triangular. 23, 9th prime. Square root of 9 is 3. There's numbers you want to pay attention to because sometimes there can be big league-wide patterns. So I wrote, conclusion, close call. There are only 2 games in the late slot prior to Sunday Night Football. And notice both home teams, Cardinals and Bucks, have a chance to become 4-5 and 2-3 at home. 45 9th triangular and 23 9th prime number. That is what stands out to me the most in this game, where it does appear 4-5 could be a very strong pattern in the week 9 games. and Brady is 45 years old. However, what makes it hard to pull the trigger is Brady can fall to 5-5 all-time versus Rams on the day leaving 55 days in the year. So again, that's usually how I'll write it if I'm not real sure about a game. This is what stands out to me the most, in case you're in some kind of pick 'em and it's not about money, but just getting the most games right each week. But if you're putting money on it, again, this is the thing that concerns me. So that's the analysis for that game. The other game in the late slot is Seahawks Cardinals. Okay, so again, we analyze everything. There were some things in the head-to-head that look good with the Cardinals, but if you follow my work, the thing I'll teach you about is like the head-to-head can be very misleading. Usually QBs, some kind of big storyline, and oftentimes the coaches. Those are usually where the key criteria is. It's nice when like the QB, the coach, and the head-to-head lines up. Sometimes that happens in games. It seems like that used to be a lot more frequent years ago. And it does feel like somehow the league's become better at making the riddles tougher to see through in recent years. And then again, that's the power of computers and algorithms and AI. And there's a lot of that in this world. But this stuff, again, there's a reason I picked it a lot higher percentage, back in 2015, 2016. I still do really well, but there's a reason that when I knew less, I picked it a higher percentage. And now how I know way more, and it's become even more challenging. It's because, again, a lot of people are learning about this. And again, there's money to be lost here in a lot bigger numbers than it's already being lost. So you just have to think about it. You have to remember there's some people in this world who've made a lot of money off this. And some people, in some cases, it's the rich getting richer because they really like, what might be $50 to you might be $5,000 to another guy. Because sadly, we have that kind of wealth disparity. And when these guys in the community that are already wealthy are hitting on major parlays on $5,000 and winning over $100,000, again, casinos take notice. So anyway, going through all the Seahawks Cardinals stuff, this is what screamed out to me. Geno Smith's record if he won. If he won, it was his 43rd game. Remember this. Here, I want you guys to understand this. There are 4 base ciphers that I teach, but again, you guys are getting the lessons tonight that you would normally get on Patreon. Again, there's so many people who are new who I realize who've hardly seen any content outside of, when I'm just talking about congrats to the winners. Thank you to everyone who supports the Patreon. Again, I don't do much more on the sports channel anymore because it's demonetized. It's never been allowed to be monetized. It's highly shadow banned. And essentially, I'm just trying to get people who realize, like, this sounds pretty cool. I think I am going to invest $5 and see if this is worth it. And again, if it was all a scam, like the trolls will tell you, then why would there be people that hang around in the large numbers that they do for all the years that it's been up? You got to answer that question. Wouldn't make any sense if I was scamming people. As you'll find, if you're part of the actual community, you'll hear most people are very happy and say it's the best value they've ever found in anything in their lifetime. And I don't think that's an exaggeration. Education and knowledge is a very valuable thing in this world, and I'm putting it out there mostly for free. And, anyway, out of the 4 ciphers, this is the one you got to know. You got to know this cipher right here. You got to know the same one that Manly P. Hall says is the important cipher in his book. That's why this isn't some just assumption that I came up with. I'm just going off the knowledge that he taught in his book, putting it to the test, which I have been since I learned about in 2013. And look at this. Seattle Seahawks, 43 in the most pure cipher. When they won the Super Bowl, they won it with 43 points. Now, look, here's why you got to know it the other way. Seahawks alone is 24, right? But if you run the alphabetic order in reverse and do the same thing, look at what Seahawks is. It's 48. And remember what Super Bowl they won. Super Bowl 48 with 43 points. Manly P. Hall didn't write about the reverse cipher. We found this out as a community, putting our minds together, testing the knowledge 3 years into the research. Derek came along with his calculator after he built it. And I just started looking at, because I told him to come up with some ciphers or research more ciphers, because I read in Faith Giovanni's book, there's 100 ciphers in use in the English language. So I wanted to look more into what those ciphers could be, and he came up with things that he read about. And I said, let's try out that reverse one, because that's like Aleister Crowley. And you guys, this stuff's not an accident. You remember for all you guys out there who think Elon Musk is the hero, you wouldn't if you understood what a puppet on strings he is. Again, just look at things like this. Twitter, 1/15/74. He purchased Twitter on the 115th day of the year, April 25th. That's when the whole thing started. And 74 days later, he wanted out of the deal. And again, these numbers are bigger than just that. Look at Bathtub, 74/115. Nick Carter on 11/5. Killing 74-115. Masonic 74-115. Again, secret societies. Anyhow, in that most pure cipher, Seattle Seahawks is 43, and this is what stood out. If Geno Smith was going to win in the most pure cipher, Seattle's 19 and Seahawks is 24, right? He becomes 19-24 in his 43rd game, which is what he did today. And you know, by the way, for all the Seahawks fans, Geno Smith being your starter this year, Seattle's on the 47th parallel. This is their 47th season. Russell Wilson's first career game against the Seahawks as a member of the Broncos. He comes into Seattle on the 47th parallel in their 47th season versus Geno Smith and stays on 47 road wins. That's what made that challenging, because it's like, man, does he stay on 47? Or does he get his 48th in light of him beating the Broncos in Super Bowl 48? So that's why some of these games are challenging. But the one thing I'll tell you is that dark blue cipher, it usually beats a riddle going up against the reverse cipher. Not always, but a lot of the time. And you see how Cardinals is 36-63? What happened in the Cardinals and Seahawks game today? And this was pointed out before the game. Seahawks could become 6-3, and Cardinals could fall to 3-6. That's exactly what happened. So Geno Smith had the perfect riddle to win. Cardinals and Seahawks overall records would make perfect sense if the Seahawks won. But the challenge was, because really you're looking for the games. Like, to me, it's like, I don't want people to lose on these picks. That's why I always, in the language, urge caution, because some guys will get carried away. Some guys will have 3 hot weekends. They'll have been making $50 bets the first 3 weeks, and they made a whole bunch because their parlays hit. That they have $5,000, and then they felt like that night they had the lock of locks, and then they bet all $5,000, and they lose, and they're back to square one. In the time I've been doing this, you guys, I've gotten that email 1,000 times. And some of them come at me like hate mail. And it makes me mad, because I'm always saying, you guys, be the tortoise. Never try to become the overnight millionaire. If you feel comfortable making a $50 bet, that's your bet limit. If you make a whole bunch of money this month, don't start betting more than $50. Stay at $50. If you build your sack up fat enough, then you can say, okay, maybe I'm graduating to $100 as my allowance for the day. But I'm telling you, everybody's trying to become an overnight millionaire, and they're having that hot streak. They're thinking they're untouchable. They're thinking tonight they got all 5,000 because they know this one's coming through, and they did the calculation. It's going to be 40,000 after tonight, but it's 0. Now imagine had they stayed with 50 and stayed with the method they just used the last week, where they made nearly 5,000. And you can't do this every week, but people hit a lot. This knowledge, you'll see, when you have the best weeks, it's like, damn, it did all line up through that number. And you just smashed. The last 2 weeks, you had very good weeks. Week 6 and week 4 have been the disappointing weeks. We've had all good winning weeks, some really good. And the weeks that were 4 and 6 that were bad, they were right about the 50-50 mark. I think one of those weeks was actually a pick under, and I hate going below 50-50 because then you feel like an asshole. But it's because you read into the wrong number pattern. And when you study the work, you can understand how it happens. But you're looking and evaluating. The head-to-head was curious for the Cardinals, because they could have got their 23rd win. Again, 23 is the 9th prime. That's a powerful prime number relationship. But as I've explained for years, too, if you're in the community, in college football, the prime number relationships are usually a lot better in the NFL. And you know what I'm noticing this college season? I'm having my worst college season in 3 years. And the prime number relationships are failing a lot this year. And then I'm watching NFL Network. If you guys have been watching NFL Network, you know this is true. They're making fun of prime numbers in this season, like their coverage of the NFL. They're like making jokes about prime numbers. There's a regular woman host on who's saying it like every 10th sentence. She's making a joke about prime numbers. And it's like, man, I've been teaching about the prime numbers thing for a long time. I'm noticing this year in college football, it's coming through the worst it has ever come through. And in the NFL, it's been shakier for the last few seasons. So I almost feel like it's like they're thumbing their nose at us, like, yeah, we see you. That's not going to work as well anymore. But shout out to everyone who hit on Notre Dame yesterday. Again, good day of college, because it's the same thing, you guys. It's understanding the number rituals with the NFL week, with the college week. Anyway, Pete Carroll, he stayed on 84 losses in this game. Big number in Arizona. Arizona's 84. And again, I'll look through everything, and Cardinals can stay on 19 home wins also stood out as Geno Smith could get his 19th win. There's only one major city in America that equals 19, and it's Seattle, where COVID-19 began, in the land of the big needle. But conclusion, close call. Geno Smith would have the perfect record with a win, and his team would become 6-3 while the Cardinals would fall to 3-6. The ATS also suggests Seahawks have at the very least a good chance to cover. And again, against the spread, so the Seahawks had a chance to become 6-3 like Cardinals 63, and the Cardinals could fall to 4-5 in week 9, where 45 is the ninth triangular, just like Brady, 45 years old, got his team to 4-5. And it reminds me, the night before Trump officially became president, he had 20 minutes on national TV, and I talked about this right after he spoke. He spoke for 20 minutes, January 19th, the night before becoming president of the United States, inauguration January 20th. And he spent 10 minutes of it talking about how much he was cheering for the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And I was like, man, the night before becoming the president, you got 20 minutes to talk to the country, and you spend 10 minutes talking about how great of friends you are with Robert Kraft, how much you love Tom Brady and the Patriots, how you're pulling for them to win the Super Bowl. I mean, he literally spent half of his time talking to America about the Patriots. And remember, New England, here, again, forwards and backwards, you guys. New England, 45-45. Brady's 45 this year. I speculated a few years back that we would likely see Brady play to age 45 after because I speculated at first that he'd win Super Bowl 41 over LA before the season began, and how that'd be synced up with the World Series, where Boston should beat LA 4-1 99 days before the Super Bowl, while Brady was 41, which is the 99th NFL season, the year he gave the Chiefs their 99th home loss. Look, you guys, you got to get the jokes, man. With the alphabetic order, New England, is 99, right? In the 99th NFL season, the team with the white Patriot on the helmet goes into the Kansas City Chiefs, the Native American team's building, and beats them, giving them their 99th. Or excuse me, I know what it was. It was Brady's 99th road win. And look, even the name of the stadium, Arrowhead Stadium, fits in with the 99 joke. So anyway, Donald Trump became number 45. Let's not forget that Donald Trump, you see how Berlin Wall, here, let me just use the two reductions. Berlin Wall, you see this? Understand, again, from sports to news. From sports to news to rigged elections, it's all the same. Berlin Wall is 45 and 63. The anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall is November 9th. Fell in 1989. Donald Trump ran on building a wall and was called the 45th president-elect in the early hours of November 9th, hours after Election Day, November 8th. 119. Berlin Wall. He's the winner-elect. Okay, the number 45 part is obvious, but the 63 part is super. Oh, shoot, I have the wrong. I'm sorry, you guys. I just realized the whole time that I was streaming. Wow. It's on the wrong. It's not supposed to do that. So, it's my bad. You got to hit. If you ever use StreamYard and you want to make sure everybody sees all your tabs, you got to use window and not the tab option, because when you switch tabs, it doesn't show up. But what you're supposed to be seeing right now is how in Gematria, New England equals 45 forwards and backwards. And also the 99, which we just talked about. But again, this is part of the joke of Trump talking about the Patriots so much as he's on the eve of becoming number 45. And remember, the word, oh, hold on. I didn't finish telling you the Berlin Wall part. Okay, but now that you can see the number, it happened in 2016. That was the year of Trump's election. 2016 is the 63rd triangular number. Remember, Muhammad Ali died that year on June 3rd, 6'3", and they say the Prophet Muhammad died at age 63. You see? The Prophet Muhammad at age 63. These are major league jokes. And not to mention, 4 years before Muhammad Ali died, sadly, I explained why he would die at age 74, you guys. This is why there's so many people in this knowledge who found it years ago, been following the whole time. I realize that's what it's up against these days. But look at this. The way he spelled it, Muhammad 74, right? There's so much to say about that number. This number is so important to the secret societies. Holiday is 74. When you use numerology, the dark blue cipher, Independence Day is 74, like 7-4. Look at this. All these words are 74. Masonic, 74. Holiday, 74. Cross is 74. Jesus, 74. Messiah, 74. Gospel 74. Parable, 74. Again, the story of Jesus is in the gospel. Jesus speaks in parables. He's Messiah in Christianity. English is 74. Gematria, the practice of coding numbers, is 74. Jewish is 74. Masonry is based in the teachings of the Old Testament. That's modern Freemasonry. Modern Freemasonry is a creation of the Jesuits. The Jesuits are Jews who converted to Catholicism to form an alliance with the Catholic Church because Judaism and Catholicism were under attack by Protestants led by Martin Luther. We don't learn about this history, but there was a merger between the Jews and the Catholics to counter the Protestant Reformation. This is in a period of time before America exists, before English is this language of the world, when the oldest English script is credited to the Catholic Church that ruled Rome, that had the Colosseum, that did things ritualistically to control the people and had massive militaries and big games. Look, if you run the alphabetic order in reverse, you know, this stuff that blew me away. Roman 74, right? Words like free are 74. Like we got free on 7-4 from London 74. When they called the election for Biden, he was at 74 million votes. Then he climbed up to a record 81. He got even more than Obama. Can you believe it? And President Biden equals, or did I say Biden? President Biden equals 81. So does President Trump. And anyway. Sorry I had the wrong tab up. I hope you guys have been following. I hope I've been explaining things clearly enough. For the new person, it'll be tough without the visuals. So that was a major screw up. We try to do better in Gematria School. We normally do better on the Patreon broadcast. I normally don't make that big of an error. It's always the public ones where I'm messing up. But anyway, coming back to these notes. So anyhow, I wrote close call because I was a little bit worried about this up here and the Cardinals potentially becoming 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. So this is why, even though it feels so strong for Geno Smith and there's some consistent numbers, this is why I write the way I write it. So I don't have to get the email from the guy who's like, you motherfucker, man, I bet $5,000 fucking dollars on that damn fucking bitch. And I'm just reading it through the screen all in caps. I mean, I'm sure that's how he's talking. And it's like, where did I tell you to go out and bet 5,000, dude? I'm saying if you've already made all this money, you know, play consistent. You don't want to be the night where some nights there's like a really strong looking riddle and it fails and you're like, what? Oh, and then they're talking about flip the script and you're like, oh my God, they didn't do it. And again, I'm not saying we're causing them to flip the script. It could be that public money ends up too much a certain way, and you're like, how didn't that one come through? That's why if you're the tortoise and you have a betting limit and you're hitting on more often than not, and you're constantly building your bankroll, but you're never risking a lot, always trying to hit more, you're not going to be the guy who loses his whole bankroll in one night. And I hate when people blame me for that. You guys don't understand. That's the frustrating thing about having a big audience and people coming in and doing that and having to read that kind of mail. And I'll tell you what, in recent times, I just don't even look at it anymore. I'm sorry, man. If you wrote me one of those hit pieces, I probably didn't even see it lately. Because, again, I didn't tell you to go out and bet anything like that in that game. But I'll tell you when I like a game. And then I understand, like if I wrote that I liked the game and I felt good about this one, I still tell people to be consistent. But when they're writing to me about the game where I said I liked it, that's when I feel the worst. Because I'm like, man, well, I see why they did it. They probably were in a bad spot, or maybe they were getting too greedy. But normally I don't miss on the I like game, and they just happened to go big on the weekend where it happened. But anyway, this is why I write it this way. Close call. Geno Smith would have the perfect record with the win, see above, in that 1924, and his team would become 6-3 while the Cardinals would fall to 3-6. And just to make sure that, I can't remember if that was on the screen when I was talking about it, because found out it was on the wrong tab. I know it's on the right screen now, but again, there are 4 base ciphers: alphabetic order, forwards and backwards numerology. In the reduction ciphers, again, it's the dark blue one that Manly P. Hall wrote about and says the most important cipher. Cardinals is 36. They fell to 3-6 as the Seahawks became 6-3. Okay. So just so that's clear, what I'm explaining when I'm pointing out these records, The ATS against the spread also suggests Seahawks have at the very least a good chance to cover. Also, Carroll can stay on 84 losses with the Hawks, Arizona 84. But on the flip side, the Cardinals also have an opportunity at their 23rd win over the Seahawks in week 9, 23 the ninth prime. And if the Cardinals win, both teams are 2-3 in the home away category, kind of like 23. Also, the Cardinals would become 4-5 for the season. I wish there was a clone of me. I wish you could make a clone. And what I'd have the clone do is everything the exact way I do it, but not look at the head-to-head stats. I want to look at it, though, because that's when you can find, like when it lines up with the QB coach on both sides and the head-to-head, when those games come through, those games rarely fail. And that's ultimately what you're looking for. And some people, that's the way they play. They just like to watch and see the work and the way it manifests and how often the same numbers show up in the games. But occasionally they'll bet when they're like, oh, Zach wrote the novel about why he likes this game, or he went ecstatic about this game. That's when I know to pull out the betting slip. So there's all sorts of people that use the knowledge a different way. And that's why I charge $5 a month. There's a lot of people who just don't like to gamble, but they like knowing about it. Again, I keep the price low for the education and knowledge, and you take it and you do with it what you can. And a lot of people in this world have proven. And look how many people have channels that are like, I learned from Zach, but I'm way better than him now. Zach can't call MLS. I'm calling international football. I mean, good for you. I'm glad. That's why I put the word. Like when I watch that shit, I'm just like, does that person not understand that I put the knowledge out there so they could do that? I mean, I've said that so many times. But then you'll watch a few of the videos and they're like, you know what? I hardly even watched Zach because once I learned from just his free video, I saw it and I did it and I can do it myself. And man, my pick rate is 90%. And then you sign up for their Patreon and you find out that their pick rate's not good at all. And then you're like, oh man. So, and then it starts to make sense, right? Because you're like, oh, so he slandered the guy he learned from, and then he bragged about a pick rate that he doesn't have, and he's not as good at it. Wow. Okay. Surprise, surprise. But hey, people are always trying to look for the better deal. And again, there are people who've learned from me who I would say are doing better. You know, I like what Victor's done. He really narrows it down. He's not trying to hit on big parlays, but he's just trying to find at least one winner each day. And when he doesn't feel confident about any games, he's like, I'm just taking the day off, guys. And the majority of days, Victor just did over 70% for the MLB season, just looking for a game a day. Find a gambler that gambles every day that did 70% for the MLB season this past year. Shout out to Victor. He's not going to help you smash on the huge parlay, but he'll help you in the real-time bets. Like he loved the Jaguars today like I did. And the Jaguars got way down early, which creates the real-time betting situation of the potential big payout. And again, that's the other beauty of this knowledge. Don't want to turn you into a gambler, but realize they're putting gambling more on the public. And realize the reason they're putting more gambling on the public, legalizing weed, they're just sucking up more revenue from the people. I think they want us in a stoned gambling coma, to be perfectly honest. I don't want this to be all about gambling. I want people to wake up and see the evil and help shut it all down. I want to see empty NFL stadiums. Here, I forgot to say this. You know, Trump, when he gave his huge speech about the Patriots right before becoming president, I want you guys to remember this. That was the year that they moved the touchback to 25 yards, and then the Super Bowl's on 2/5. And Brady had the 25-point comeback over the Falcons. Look at this. Falcons is 25. That was the only Super Bowl the Pope blessed. Pope is 25. Remember when Donald Trump posed next to the Pope at the Vatican after Jerusalem Day with the big shit-eating grin while the Pope looked like he pooped his pants? And Ivanka and Melania were dressed like they were ready for a funeral. Exotic women, exotic names as it's time to get out of America. As Russia-Ukraine unfolds and his wives are all from the Far East over by the Berlin Wall. But, oh yeah, speaking of him, Trump 25. And then he puts in the most federal judges in a single term. Oh, I forgot. Look at this, you guys. This is why you got to know the base ciphers, though. Or hold on. That's why you got to know the base ciphers. You got to know all four. Judge, you see how it's 47, 20, 88, 25? Look at Gavel. 47, 20, 88, 25. Look at Trump. 25, 47, 88. Puts in his first Supreme Court justice on April 7th. And that was the day that Biden got Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmed on April 7th. But then they didn't put her in until just days after the Jackson-Dobbs abortion overruling, where the 5 days prior to her going in or whatever it was, they were going on and on about how black women will be the most impacted. from the overturning of Roe versus Wade because the majority of aborted babies were black. And you're watching this and you're like, this is the white supremacy structure. This is like some kind of sick gloating where they can get on in a suit and a tie and be like, yes, and Roe versus Wade. It's just like, don't you actually like listen to what the message? I mean, isn't this sad to think about? We're supposedly all born free and equal, but somehow these same communities are getting targeted all through history. Oh, slavery's over, you know? Oh man, black communities are doing really well in the post-World War II era, man. They got all that respect from helping out in the war. Now what are we going to do? I got a plan over with the Nazis in the lab to cook up some new cocaine that's super cheap and addictive. Then Ronald Reagan, here comes the actor Ronald Reagan to tell you about the new drug war on all the poor black people who sure love our NFL. R.I.P. to Eazy-E, 201 days after his birthday, after the Lethal Injection album. Remind me what the Bill Gates COVID-19 simulation was called. Again, you guys, it's more important than gambling, but it's nice to be able to make money. So anyway, we get to the Jaguars-Raiders game. So often the games I like a lot are just like this too, because it's like I got my people having heart attacks. I hope they made it to the second half and didn't die in the casino because they bet all their money today like I told them not to do. But if they did, it was probably one of those days of an emotional super low and high and euphoria, and then they probably have the flu the next day from what they just did to themselves psychologically. Again, that's the other side of this, you guys. That's why I don't necessarily encourage gambling, because a lot of people, I realize, they just don't have a control mechanism. They can't control how much food they're eating, how much porn they're watching, how much whatever the hell they're doing that they shouldn't be doing. For whatever reason, maybe my parents, definitely probably at this day and age would have been put in a group home and taken away by CPS. But, I'll always appreciate the way I was brought up, because they taught me to be on my game and be disciplined and work my ass off or else. And again, I've been good at controlling my impulses in life. Have you ever been in that situation where your friend's girlfriend wanted to sleep with you and you had to be like, no, even though you were really attracted to her? Some people will sleep with the girl just because they're attracted. In fact, it happens a lot. That's a lot of times what cheating is. I'm not the worst looking guy in the world. I've had that scenario happen a number of times. And every time I've been able to say no, and it's even started rumors that I was gay, Sometimes doing the right things, that's what's cool. But discipline can actually help you have good karma in life and help certain things go in your favor later in life as well. Anyway, trying to give out some other teaching lessons tonight besides just gambling. But why did I like the Raiders and the Jaguars? There's benefits to doing this for nearly a decade now. And there are two numbers that come up in Jaguars games, and they've been some monster upsets for us in the past. And they're numbers that are just super consistent. Now, there's no perfect patterns, but there's numbers that come through 80+% of the time, even still to this day. I used to be able to say that about other numbers that used to be at a much higher percentage that in recent years seem to have faded off. Dallas in 13 used to murder, and it's still a good number in Dallas, but it's not nearly what it used to be. It's a huge reduction. It's still a winner, but it's a big difference when you are winning at 80+% and when you're winning at probably somewhere between 55 and 60% now, because that's what it feels like with Dallas in 13, which was not that way when I started this knowledge. Anyway, huge numbers with the Jaguars. Here, the only two ciphers that Manly P. Hall gives you in his book are the alphabetic order and the alphabetic order at the rules numerology. Again, they taught us the alphabetic order. But you see how Jaguars is 77 and 23? Notice Jacksonville, it's 43, right? When you run the alphabetic order in reverse, football is 133 and 43, where Jacksonville is 133 and 43 forwards. Florida, known for producing so many football products. Jacksonville, huge football town, college football. Anyway, so again, Jaguars 77, Jacksonville 43. Derek Carr got his 77th loss today and his 43rd away loss. When I see things like that, and again, Jaguars in 77 is super consistent. And you know what? Maybe for doing this video in a year's time, 2 years' time, all of a sudden we're like, isn't that funny that it was one of the numbers to stay consistent and now it's not coming through as much? But still to this day it is, and I still felt good about it. And that's why I wrote the words I like, which I didn't write for any other game in this week because there were so many games that I thought were. Yeah, but I had the right lean on the majority of the games, which we'll go through. Jacksonville Jaguars, 66 in the most pure. 66 and 77, these numbers are fire with the Jaguars. And earlier where I said in the head-to-head, or hold on, I was on the wrong damn tab again. Anyway, you guys know what I'm saying though, or do you not? For the new person, you have to understand the point. These are the two original ciphers that I began with when I learned this knowledge, and to this date, they're still the best with sports. And in these ciphers, there are numbers connected to the Jaguars that are very consistent. And the most simple, right from Manly P. Hall's book, Jaguars 77, Jacksonville 43. And again, for those of you guys looking at QB stats, you're not going to get the right QB stats on StatMuse. Well, in a way you will, but not the stats that we go off of. We go off career starts. StatMuse has every quarterback's career starts and backup games combined. What I've learned over the years is you want to look at those career starts. They are the most significant number. Sometimes, though, the total career number is also worth looking at, but then you just end up looking at so many numbers, it can make you pull out your hair. And that's why you got to narrow it down to the criteria where normally the winning clues are. So anyway, 77, 66, Jaguars 77 when you use numerology, Jacksonville Jaguars 66. These numbers just so good with this team again and again. And that's exactly what ended up happening. But this game would have scared the hell out of you because the Raiders were up big against the Jaguars, which now with all the new gambling, you can bet real time. You get big odds when a team's down. If you really like a narrative, see, that's the nice thing about it. If these early games are going on and you're looking at the primetime games and the later games in the day, you got a handful of games to work with. You can put down like a $5 bill with the huge odds on the Jags to come back and stick it with if there are games that you feel look really good in the evening, you can put down like a $5 bill, catch the Jaguars in the comeback narrative, and hopefully hit on the 2 or 3 games that you like that are to come. And easily a $5 bill can become 100. Now, in a society where Americans are addicted to gambling, I mean, every time I'm in the grocery store, I always see at least one person in there buying a bunch of lotto tickets. And I'm like, and they don't look like they're wealthy to me. You know, I'm not trying to judge people, but you see like the old beat up sneakers, you know, the clothes. And I never dress fancy, but again, like at least my shoes aren't falling apart. You know what I mean? But you see these people and they're buying lotto tickets. It's like, God, if they probably just saved their money, they could probably have a better quality of life. And they're just giving all, just thinking they're going to become a millionaire one day. You know, each day they're just risking all they got to become a millionaire. That's not a realistic strategy. And they're sucked in by the same media that's manipulated and mind controlled them into everything else. They're going to, man, I just saw that guy won his second lottery. That means I can win at least one. Oh my God, this person won the lottery for the third time. Don't you guys realize how often they do stories like that? And you're like, wait a minute, man. I mean, okay, seriously, some people are seriously born with the luck gene or something's up here. And that story is just so common with the lottery. But anyway, it was that made me use the words I like. And I also saw that the Raiders coach could get his 23rd loss. Again, in the most pure cipher, remember, Jaguars is 77. Like Clark could get his, again, just to make it clear for the person who needs the visual. The 2 ciphers on the left. When you go to this calculator, it's going to bring up the 4 base ciphers, the alphabetic order with the rules of numerology, the reverse alphabetic order with the rules of numerology. Today, Carr got his 77th loss, and the coach got his 23rd loss. And those are the 2 better ciphers. That the original ciphers that we know. Running it in reverse is helpful. They do a lot of rituals with those numbers as well, but it's the ones on the left that still to this day and from the very beginning have always been the most consistent. So that also makes me go, wow. So Carr has already a really consistent number against him that comes through almost all, again, 80+% of the time. Jaguars 77 when it's on the board. That's high. The 43 also makes a ton of sense. Keep in mind, again, Florida equals 43, like Bush down to Florida. Like Brady down to Florida at age 43 with the skull and the swords crossed. But yeah, the Jaguars could also improve to 2 and 3 at home. And in that most pure cipher where Jaguars is 23, so is Las Vegas. They're both 23. Either team could have become 2 and 3 against the spread, so that was a toss-up. But that's what made me say I like the Jaguars this week. A lot lines up for them, and they have value because they're underdogs. Review the notes above. What stands out the most to me is Carr can get his 77th loss and 43rd road loss. Did I have a typo in there? Most to me is Carr. That's supposed to say can instead of and. Whoops. 77 is a strong number with the Jaguars. If there is a concern, it is that the Jaguars can fall to 5-5 versus the Raiders on the day, leaving 55 days left in the year. And even if I like a game, I'll always try to show at least one thing that could be a concern. Because again, I have in the back of my mind 1,000 emails from the guy who didn't listen to me, who gave it all up in one day, and he went with a game that I liked. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, you can't be mad at somebody for betting so much money. I've never told you to bet. You guys, I've gotten emails about people who bet $40,000 on a game I liked. And some of them could be trolls, but it just gets annoying because it's like, man, well, if that happened to that person, I feel bad about that. But God, why are they doing that? And they'll be writing that to me on a day where, like, I wrote that I liked 4 games, right? I liked 4 games. 3 out of the 4 came through. And they're writing me about the one that didn't and how much money they lost. And I'm just like, okay, that's why I always got to remember to tell people. And I do. I always have. I always told people to be the tortoise, be cautious, never bet more than you can afford to lose. But I know there's just people out there that are just, they're hot. They've been hitting on all my likes, and now they lost, and now they want to cry me a river. Anyway, let's go through this quicker. Vikings and Commanders. Okay. Do you remember how the Vikings were the first team to win in London this year, right after the Queen died on the opening day of the season? Vikings equals 62, or excuse me, Minneapolis equals 62 like Queen. Kirk Cousins became 62 and 62 in London, wearing purple like royalty. And we liked that week for that. Plus, there was even more to it. And the thing is, the word queen is 62, but the word royal is 71. So I make this clear in the thing. It's like, do they become 7-1 or 6-2? And when Diana died in the big ritual, the queen was 71 at the time. So I've always explained the significance of these numbers. The queen, her coronation, her father died. Again, her father died on February 6th, which in London is written 6-2. And the 2 ciphers that Manly P. Hall teaches, queen equals 62 and 26. February 6th can be written 6-2 or 2-6. Her coronation is June 2nd, which can be written either 6-2 or 2-6, like queen is 62 and 26. So Kirk Cousins became 62 and 62 for his career in purple, playing for Minneapolis, the 62 city, again in London, in the London game this year. So there was an argument between 62 and 71. And I pointed out that he could get his 67th win. Now, what I've noticed from these teams that change their names, it's kind of like the Gematria that gets assigned from that period in history and this period in history. It seems like the numbers both matter. So, like, Washington's been the Redskins. It seems like the Redskins numbers are still good with the team. They've been the football team. And in the time they were the football team, I noticed that 67 played a lot with them. Football team. Remember, that was their temporary name when they went from the racist Redskins. By the way, you guys, shout out to Dane Calloway. We're going to collaborate soon. Dane Calloway, he's always pointing out that they're lying about history. There were what we would refer to as black men, but indigenous people who were darker complected, more melanated. And it's funny, you can't use any word and you'll piss me off. You say melanin, people are like, stop using that stupid word. Everyone's got melanin. Stop using black. Black's racist. It's just like, you guys know what I'm trying to say. They're lying about history and who was here. Again, in the NFL, 3, I'm just going to use the word black. And for black people who don't like that word, what is interesting in the numbers is black has Gematria of 11, which is the master number. And, there's only Revelation 1:14 mentions Jesus' physical description. If you look at that, it's got to make you think he's at least a somewhat African descent. Jesus equals 11 in the same cipher as black. 1 through 11 added is 66. 66 is the 11th triangular number. The first Super Bowl season, the 66th season. NFL 11 on 11. And again, just this pattern. But anyway, football team equals 67. Cousins did pick up his 67th win today. So, again, it's the first time I've seen it count this year, but it was good while they were the football team, and it's like, played again today. It doesn't surprise me. And Heineke, he had some numbers that could have worked either way. He could fall to 9-11 and 4-7 at home in D.C. Don't get me started on Building 7, 47 floors tall. Fell 8 hours later in the day in New York City. No plane hit. Anyway, but the 56 was also there, and we're in the weekend of remember the 5th of November, the day leaving 56 days left there. Dicey. Um, so yeah, this game also a little bit more iffy here. That's why I didn't write I like. I wrote close call, decent narratives on both sides, but ATS suggests Vikings might get it done. If somehow the Vikings and Bills lose this week, pay attention that they could both be 6-2. So I saw very possibly how the Bills could lose to the Jets this week. And playing each other next in the Year of the Queen, where Buffalo represents the Queen City and the Vikings wear purple and were the first to win in London. Then again, they can both become 7-1 as well, and that is how old the Queen was when Diana died. And again, if you've read my first book, Letters and Numbers, I get into the number 71 in a greater extent with the royal family. Let me check to make sure I'm not misspeaking. I think Princess Diana, yeah, her birthday was July 1st, 7-1, and then she died while the Queen was 71, and just huge perfect ritual, just like how her death was very predictable this year. I predicted the Queen would die at 96, why that number mattered after Super Bowl 56, which was originally scheduled for the day her dad died. And then I said why I thought she would die on the 140th day of the year on the anniversary of Billy Cannon, but instead she died 140 days after her birthday on the Virgin Mary's birthday, which made a ton of sense. But the reason I thought that 140 would matter, which it did, was because Queen of England equals 140. And had she died on the 140th day of the year, it was the day leaving 225 days left in the year, and her full name equaled 225. Anyway, if you guys weren't following me, I was showing how Charles' diagnosis with the killer cooties. You know what cooties is, right? The thing you can't talk about on YouTube. A lot of people got the pokey doke for it. But the 19. But remember, Charles got it, then she got it, and then it was all, again, crown virus. That's what corona means, crown. The crown virus. Royal family in Gematria equals coronavirus, equals Anthony Fauci, equals a whole bunch of other things that go right back to the Jesuits in Rome. And then she dies on the Virgin Mary's birthday, and she's got the Catholic floor to lay on her crown like the king does. All roads lead to Rome. The Holy Roman Empire never died. It's alive and well in the NFL. But yeah, I saw that the Commanders could stay on 38 wins. Minnesota equals 38 in the most period. Just looking at their all-time, that's their all-time Week 9 record. So again, we go through a lot of stats that seem to be very helpful in the riddles each week. We look at those and we weigh. It's like weighing scales. So the Vikings did prevail in this game. The Vikings did narrowly win. They did not cover the spread, but they did win, and they got to 7-1. And why I was saying about Buffalo and Minnesota is, again, Buffalo's the Queen City. They won the opening day game over the defending Super Bowl champion in their building, and where the Super Bowl was hosted in back-to-back years. For the first time ever, the NFL has the winning team in their own building in the years of COVID-19, where they don't want people to travel. Did I say Cooties 19? Because that's what I meant to say to the YouTube gods who control what messages are medical misinformation and which ones aren't. I can't tell you how many videos I've lost just like this for medical misinformation when I'm not even trying to talk about medicine. I'm just making a point about numbers and patterns and where they all lead to. Anyway, here, Bills Jets. So I wrote about this game before, and something that's been tricky. Patrick Mahomes this year has had two awesome riddles that he did not win with, and I haven't seen anything like that with Mahomes' career before. And I was just like, man. But his other games have been good. And then Allen today had the chance to get his 48th win, and New York Jets is 48, and the over-under was at 47, right by 48. Normally, Josh Allen isn't missing on something like that, and normally I'm not missing on the over-under, but I did in this game because normally when two numbers are close like that, I was thinking the over would hit here, and I have not missed on many over-unders this year. I have a very high percentage in that stat because I don't put them out for every game. But where I like them, I usually don't miss. I think, honestly, somebody can check me if I'm wrong on this. I think it's the first time I missed on the over-under in the NFL game this year. I might have missed on one other one. Somebody correct me. I know my troll will if I'm wrong. Sometimes he can be good for something. But anyway, it's been a high percentage on the over-unders. I missed in this game. But here's what I wrote, because I did see the narrative for why the Jets could upset, as I wrote about in the Vikings comment. So for the conclusion, I wrote, in all likelihood, Allen gets his 48th win because New York Jets is 48, but Bills do not have any value unless they cover, and I do not see a strong narrative for that. So I did not think the Bills would cover the spread. So that means you can take the Jets with the points, and what that means is you have to bet $100 to win 70. This is probably a game best left alone this week's what I wrote. If anything is worth playing, it might be the over as long as the OU stays at 47. So hopefully it went up and it kept you from betting on that. Because or if it went to, that's the thing, you guys. So that's where if your initial bet is wrong, that's the nice thing about the real-time betting now, is if the over-unders changed, like on some people's books, the over-under might have been at 48.5 points, and they're lucky. But I'm giving the clue about where the number is. Some people might have had it when they bet because it can change depending on how public betting is, and in real time it could change. And like if by game time the over-under was up to 49 points, then they'd be betting the under instead, and they would have won on that today. So the initial thought was wrong, but sometimes the knowledge ends up being helpful because of the real-time situation, being aware of the number and why I thought that. Anyway, these teams like to pay tribute to 54 as well when they meet, because Bills equals 54 in the most simple cipher. So does Jets. Plus, when you run the alphabetic order in reverse, Jets is also 54. And these teams have done a lot with 54, and we've done well in the past with over-unders and where they set them, because these teams have a lot of overlap, plus they're both in New York. And anyway, and Jets can fall to 5-4. Their upset narrative is getting to 6-3 while both teams are in their 63rd season. But so far, no one has been able to pick up that number versus the Bills in 2022. Buffalo equals 63 in the most simple cipher. Remember, I went to Buffalo this year and taught that community in the streets about how Buffalo equals 63, racism equals 63, why they opened the store on O.J. Simpson's birthday, how that store was connected to politics and race throughout history, and why it happened on Israel's 74th birthday in light of the white supremacist narrative. Here, you guys are going to have to look at the screen while I get this up, because you can't say these things out loud, you know. We can create new terminology. You might get Kanye'd. It might be the latest video 86 just for making a point. Okay, you remember the Buffalo shooting, right? Check this out. In the most simple cipher, this is the Bills and Jets 63rd season. In the most simple cipher, racism is 63. With numerology, it's 27, just like Buffalo, 63-27. Normally, this number plays really well with the Bills. But this year, like Mahomes could have got his 63rd win over the Bills. Just wherever it showed up, it has not been hitting. And that's okay because, again, remember, the shooting was on the 14th and there were the 14 words on the gun. So I'll tell you, since we're already a good part of the way through the season, one of the things that I thought we would see happen this year is the Bills having 14 wins because of the 14 words on the gun and the shooting on the 14th. And this shooting happened while Kathy Hochul, the female governor of New York, who's from Buffalo, is 63 years old. It also happened while the mayor, Byron Brown, is 63 years old. And a lot of people in Buffalo don't believe that Byron Brown's a legitimate mayor because he lost the primary against his challenger, and he had to be a write-in ballot. And the city was really big behind this candidate who was really trying to come in and help out Buffalo, because the people of Buffalo know what's going on in their city. You guys, ever since they pulled the actual football team out of Buffalo and put it in Orchard Park, that community has been like purposely destroyed. And again, I forgot to mention, again, the 3 black quarterbacks to win Super Bowls, the 3 black QBs to win Super Bowls have all played for the Native American teams. Again, that's why I was saying shout out to Dane Calloway. Sorry, guys. Sometimes I got too many tracks of thought and I go off the main track. But anyway, Dane Calloway educates about how indigenous, dark-complected people were here before the slave trade. And I think the NFL is trying to tell you that because they're controlled by this older power structure that's kind of giving you hints about history and kind of thumbing their nose at you. Doug Williams, 42 points with the Redskins. Russell Wilson, representing the 42nd state, wins in Arizona, equaling 42. Super Bowl 48. Or no, I'm tripping. Wait a minute. That Super Bowl might not have been in Arizona. He might have lost to Brady in Arizona as Brady became 4-2 in Super Bowls in Arizona. That's what that was with Russell Wilson. His loss at the goal line. That was also a 42 ritual. I know you just saw LeBron James, getting that most pure cipher, you guys. LeBron James, 42 in the most pure cipher. The real King James birthday is June 19th, 619. That's the 114th prime number. LeBron James, 114. You see? See how they did it? And LeBron, when he won it with the Cavs, he won it on the real King James's birthday, and we called that. I wish the channel wasn't deleted back then. Back when we got views, there'd be more than a million views on that video now. 100,000 comments when he came back from 3-1 about thank you, thank you, thank you. I've never had this fat of pockets in my life because it was 40-1 odds. We said he's coming back and he's winning on real King James' birthday. I told you before this season began, LeBron's beating the Warriors this year in the comeback. Again, Nate Thurmond, number 42 for the Warriors and Cavs. He dies. Nate Thurmond has number 42. Man, you guys, Nate Thurmond, Steph Curry, LeBron James, all born in Akron, Ohio. LeBron James, 42. Looks a lot like Nate Thurmond, who was a really great basketball player who had his number retired with the Warriors and the Cavs. First, the Warriors beat the Cavs. Then the Cavs come back and beat the Warriors. LeBron scores 27. Nate Thurmond's dead 27 days later at age 74. Killing 74. Look up the song Gematria, 74 and 38, like killing. Gematria, the killing name. And then think more about Nate Thurmond being dead at age 74 and Muhammad Ali and a whole lot of other people in big rituals. Think about the cross, crucifixion, execution. Think about all the dead rappers in that number that we taught about a gazillion times. But anyway, getting back just to how we look at it. Again, you're looking at the situation, you're evaluating the numbers, you're trying to get ahead of the curve. And Colts and Patriots. Now this game, New England 45, again, historically strong. But and you know what? You know why I should have wrote a better conclusion, because I knew that Ellinger 37 days after his birthday, a big Patriots number, again, that most pure cipher. I knew that probably was not a good sign for the Colts, but God, other numbers made it look right. Again, New England is 45 in the most pure. They could have fallen to 4 and 5. There used to be a team called the Colt 45s. That number does play with the Colts a good deal, but it's not. Historically, the best number with the Colts has been 15, and it also could have played for him this week. But I did have one big concern about the Patriots besides just the Ellinger thing. It was that if they won, they would play the Jets 5 and 4. And again, it could have happened to the Jets today. And again, that's why it's not a perfect science, you guys. But usually it'll help you. At worst case scenario, usually you're splitting games over. You're like, why did it come through in that one, but not that one? It's like, at least you didn't lose on both. But the Patriots are going to face the Jets 5 and 4. And I'm telling you, they do so many rituals with the Jets and that number over the years. It's ridiculous. And the Bills too. And that's why it was tough today. It's like, well, I see the upset narrative. That's where the major value is. And I guarantee you all sorts of people in the community won money on that because they knew they put $5 down on the Jets with the 6-3 narrative, becoming 6 and 3 in both teams' 63rd season. That's where the person goes, you know what? Instead of buying a lottery ticket, I'm putting $5 down on the Jets upsetting Bills because that's a huge parlay multiplier. And I'm taking these games right here because I like it. Man, I can win almost $100. I'd love to scratch a $5 ticket and win nearly $100. Again, the way I see a poor man at the grocery store just stocking up on lottery tickets while his shoes look like he needs a pair like 9 months ago. I'm like, man, that guy's like not even paying attention to his own like surroundings and what his shoes look like. And he could have just bought a new pair of shoes with as many lottery tickets as I see in his hand. It's crazy how expensive shoes have gotten in my lifetime. When I was in middle school, it was when those Jordans were brand new, the white ones with like the black patented leather. I never really cared about shoes, but I loved those Jordans so much. And some of you guys don't know about me, but when I was younger, I used to be the only white kid in a gym with a lot more darker complected children around the same age as me at the SEI self-enhancement camp. And again, my sister and I were the first neighborhood we grew up in. We were the only white kids in the neighborhood. And I still remember I was probably about 11 or 12 when those Jordans came out. But the SEI camp that year had those Jordans for us. And if you guys don't know about SEI, they give out a nice pair of shoes, but I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe they were good. They'd been out for a while, but they were giving out those shoes. And I just thought those were the sweetest shoes I'd ever seen. And, but I remember the first time I played at the SEI camp, the coach saw that I could dribble well, and he actually let me be the starting point guard. And but I remember the first time down the court, he taught me something. The first time down the court, and I wasn't a selfish player, but the guy gave me a lot of space, and I could shoot well. And I shot, and I remember I shot the three, and I didn't even pass anybody. It was the first time down the court, and I made the shot. But as I shot it, the coach called out that he didn't like that. He said no, because he didn't want to see the point guard the first time down the court, taking his own shot. But I made the shot, but he still benched me. And then I never got to start again. Because he told me, he said, that's not your job as the point guard. He said, it's good that the shot went in, but he said, you got to come down and warm up the offense. You can't come down and be playing like whoever it was. He might have said Allen Iverson or Stephon Marbury, who were probably back in college back then. And I start to think back, and I think about maybe that's kind of how it was, because I remember when I was growing up, Iverson and Marbury, they were the show-out college point guards. There wasn't really, dribbling all over, scoring all over. I mean, it was like the game was changing. It was coming out more about the star. The guy dropped, 50 points in the game rather than the team effort. When I grew up before that, it was the Portland Trail Blazers. Jerome Kersey, Buck Williams, Kevin Duckworth, the whole starting team. It was all about every player on the team. Again, they socialize us through sports. I realize I got the wrong thing up on the screen again. But anyway, Buffalo, racism, rituals, rig sports. You guys. So anyhow, they are going in 5-4. I probably would have just stayed away from this, but a number that has been very good over the years, and you wouldn't be mad about it if you were brand new and it's your first weekend and you lost on that, you'd be like, man, Colts in 50, and he's got to be wrong. But no, that number did not miss last year for the Colts. It's been good already this year, but it missed in this game. And that's why I always tell people, that's why you're consistent. You don't go out and bet $10,000 in one night because you made all this money and you can't believe it. Now you feel like you're going to have $50,000 next thing, but now you're back to zero. Because you know what? Maybe you did hit on the last 15 Colt riddles that you played, but tonight was the sixth night and it didn't play. And now look at you. You're wishing you went back to the tortoise, like Zach said. Keep building. Don't try to become overnight millionaire. If you make $5,000 in a hot week, that doesn't mean up your betting limit to 1,000. Because if you have 3 bad nights in a row, you're getting back down to where you started. Just stay consistent. Keep building. And that way, if you miss and you get in a bad streak, because there's weeks, you guys, there's been times where I've had in a whole week, I'll have 5 bad days. And that is the most frustrating thing for me, because then I'm getting extra hate mail. But people who are consistent and listen, they're not mad. They're not the ones writing the hate mail. They're like, well, I've already done really well this year. And yeah, it sucked. I lost $50 this weekend. But you know what? I've already made over 400 this year. A lot of people have made a lot more than that. But that's why it's just I know the people who are screaming, the people who make this unpleasant are the ungrateful people who probably made a bad decision, which was never anything I advised. Again, learn the knowledge, become like Victor, find your niche, and really exploit that. Victor has shown how if you just stick to being consistent and really ride one game a day and feel really good about that game and hope that it starts in a hole. Victor loves the real-time betting situation. Something Victor's done for people. And I think it's other people besides. Some people get jealous and be like, well, why are you just giving Victor so much credit? You guys, first of all, Victor brought out his whole family to New York City for the 9/11 event we just had, including his little niece, who was so happy to teach about Gematria at a very young age. She's already enthusiastic about it because his family sees how he's improved his situation and how he has a clientele that he's making very happy. And I feel good about that because I advised people support Victor, years ago now. And he's been doing it since. Just like I advise people to support Ron, and people have been supporting Ron for years. And, there's another good gentleman, Martin, but things come up in his life. And anyway, Simple Truth TV, Arthur, he has done a good job and called some good futures. And everybody hits and misses. Arthur's also not charging a lot to teach the knowledge. He's trying to help you. And if people are, he's had some great calls. Again, he caught the Drake Raptors over Warriors thing in Game 6. He was dead on it. The album, he had it all perfectly figured out. So that was awesome work. And I gave him mad props when he did that. Anyway. And again, he came out for New York City and pounded pavement and spoke in the streets on the mic and did it with class and style, man. Ballsy shit. Go out in the middle of Times Square and get on the megaphone and just teach the knowledge, teach a crowd of people, thousands of people about 42 and Black history. How many people in New York City stopped and listened to that and then just saw LeBron James apologizing with a big 42 on his head? Again, you guys, if you don't know, slavery, the N-word, Tuskegee, February, that's Black History Month. Names like LeBron James, Jackie, and a million more, they equal 42. Muhammad Ali, 42. Not his birth name. You know. But yeah, this game's the kind of thing, like, had the Patriots lost today, it would have been a good day. That, I said today was a mediocre day. It was. Patriots lose today. Sam Ellinger somehow comes through, drops the Patriots to 4-5. A lot more people would have had a big payday, because I guarantee you the guys who were trying to strike it big today, they had this game on there because the Colts had great value. They're looking for that big value game, ticket with 3 games with big value. You wager 20, 50 bucks, you win a couple hundred. Sometimes you can win a lot more than that. Sometimes you can win over 1,000, and these guys do it. But you need a game like this to come through. Otherwise, it probably killed your ticket because you wanted that game. The narrative didn't look too bad. They're probably looking at the Ellinger 37 days thing too, because they know, because they're looking at the same stuff I am for all the years I have been. But they're like, yeah, that Colts 15's been good. And then when you lose, for the person who's bitching me out, I know they haven't been around long enough. I'm like, nobody's bitching me out about Colts 15 right now. We've hit so much on that in the last season and this season. And anyway, for the person who's too mad, I know they just went too far. This Packers and Lions game, I got to admit, I was leaning Packers here because I was seeing that 4-5. I was like, he's got to bounce back. But notice what I wrote, because I look at both sides, and some people will have played this game and won today with the Lions because they're looking for the value. The big thing for Rodgers was he could get his 52nd away loss. That is a number that plays at Ford Field. What else is sick is when you run it the other way. In the most pure cipher, Ford Field is 52. When you run it the other way, it's 47. Henry Ford, who it's named after in the Motor City, he died on April 7th in the year 47. And if you're new here, very special number. It's not arbitrary that the first Super Bowl season was the 47th season of the NFL in the year 66. Again, 66 is the 11th triangular number. 47 in numerology is 4 plus 7 is 11. 11 is the master number. Football is 11 on 11. There's a lot to these numbers. The word Christian is 47, and there's 66 books in the Bible, and New Testament equals 66. Revelation equals 121, square root 11. See how it's math? Revelation equals 121, and the square root of that number is 11. You add 1 through 11 together, it's 66. Revelation's the 66th and concluding book of the Bible. New Testament equals 66. When you run it the other way, it equals 42. It begins with the 42 generations to Jesus in Matthew. The word math equals 42 forward, 66 in reverse. Numerology way, New Testament, 42 forward, 66 in reverse. New Testament begins with Matthew. Math, 42, 66, like New Testament, 42 generations to Jesus. 66th book of the Bible. Only physical description, Revelation 1:14. Black 11, Jesus 11. Physical description, hair like wool, darker complexion. Got to be at least somewhat African. Could have been mixed. There's a lot of mixed people in the world. Everything. Why is it so unclear? Why is there? Come on. This man walked the earth, and there's not a super clear physical description of him in the book. All these different authors. I remember in Sunday school, I got told I asked too many questions. I got told the same thing in city school, like everyone else went to, public school. Some people just tell you ask too many questions. Well, I'm glad I asked questions because it's been helpful to know this information in the time I've been kicked out of my own profession. And it's been nice to teach this to thousands of people, more people than I would have reached. Again, to be perfectly honest, though, I'd rather be in a classroom with 30 students helping 30 young people have smiles on their face and know important things. And for all people be like, what would you teach them, Gematria? Well, I teach them things that are more important to know as children. And maybe if there was some time to introduce Gematria in a way that wasn't scary, but just to get it in their mind, as depending on their age level. It depends on what age level. By the time you're in the high school, you should be able to talk about stuff. I should be able to talk to a classroom of high school students like this. Let's talk about reality. Here, if you think your teacher's wrong, prove it. Anyway, Rodgers, he also had a chance at his 9th road win versus the Lions in week 9. So, that was there. And LaFleur could have got his 45th all-time win, the 9th triangular number. Some years, the 45-9 thing is just boom, 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 boom. It's not missing. This year, it did not hit in a lot. So it's what made me iffy on a lot of games. And I think if I'd gone back over the week and not even paid attention to that, would have been more confident about some other games. But, I was looking at the narrative for maybe the Packers to upset Dallas. It was based on them potentially winning this game because you're trying to look up how things line up. Just with McCarthy being in Dallas and the old Packers coach, and let's not forget how his brother dropped dead at the gym. And if I'm not mistaken, was his brother, hold on, was his brother 47 years old? I think he dropped dead at the gym. Yeah, his brother was 47, right? The 47th NFL season, the first Super Bowl season, Packers over Chiefs. Packers with the big G like the Masons. American football credit to Walter Camp, who's a Mason, who was in Yale Skull and Bones. Okay. Yeah, there in the all-time week 9 record, there was something that also seemed a little bit encouraging for the Packers. So I did notice, though, that if the Lions cover the spread, so this ATS is the spread, if the Lions cover the spread, they're 4-4. 4-4. Detroit and Packers equals 44. Now, if you're asking why are some things in bold and why are not, if things are in the left side of the cipher, which are usually the better ciphers, I put it in bold. If it's in the right side of the cipher, I almost always just write it, but don't put it in bold. Sometimes I'll write it in bold and I'll write why, because there'll be like a big pattern with the numbers. So I'm like, it's more powerful here because all these 44s will hit. But notice Detroit and Packers, they both have the 44. And Lions did become 4-4 versus the spread. So if you took the Lions with the points, you did just fine today. You would have wished that you bet on them to win because they were a good payout. They were a 3-point underdog at home. And anyhow, what I wrote is following the pattern of 45 in week 9, I favor the Packers to improve to 4-5 while their coach LaFleur gets his 45th career win. I feel most years that would have been like, and that's normally how it is. But sometimes that's why you don't bet the house, because sometimes all of a sudden that pattern just for whatever reason. Like here, to make a point, Cincinnati, the number that's strong in Cincinnati is the most pure cipher, 51. That number plays so much in Cincinnati. Joe Burrow today. I wrote a book about how Joe Burrow's career is defined by the number 54. His connection with Joe Montana being drafted by the Bengals after Super Bowl 54, the Joe Montana Bowl when Joe Montana equals 54. How he won the LSU championship on the 54 date numerology. How in the 54th Bengals season, he took him to the Super Bowl in the year of the Tiger, like the Bengal Tigers. Like Cooper Kupp, the Super Bowl MVP, and who went to Eastern Washington, who the day before the Rams beat the Bengals, his Eastern Washington, his school, beat the Idaho State Bengals by 3 points, which also gave us the nudge on why it would be a 3-point game. I was confident it would be a 3-point game in Super Bowl 56, which it was, which was covering the spread. And I really liked Odell to score the first touchdown because Odell Beckham Jr. equals 56. His birthday is the day leaving 56 days left in the year. And again, November 5th, his birthday, was the day he was traded from Cleveland to LA. And a lot of people don't realize this, but the Rams franchise, it started in Cleveland. And LeBron in Cleveland and his connection with Odell and King James Bible 56. But Odell made so much sense to be the first guy to score in Super Bowl 56. His name is 56, born on the day leaving 56 days left in the year. He was traded on his 29th birthday from Ohio to LA. Again, Ohio, the birthplace of football, has never won the Super Bowl. They haven't won a championship since Jim Brown played on the Browns. And then the Browns leave Cleveland and right away become a Super Bowl winner in a big way in a new city. And the fans think they're cursed. And it's a mockery. Ohio's the birthplace of football. When Odell got traded to the Rams, it was his 29th birthday. And the most pure cipher, football is 29 and so is Ohio. So he carries the championship from the birthplace of football to LA, who wins Super Bowl 56 and the Ukraine Bowl, which there's so much more to say about, but we got to keep the lesson moving. Anyway, Ukraine 34, Rams just fell to 3-4. Sean McVay's fiance from Ukraine. Stafford, the 34th QB to win a Super Bowl at age 34. Curry does the same thing in the same colors in California at age 34, scoring 34 in game 1 and the closeout game. Rams fall to 3-4 to start this year. Warriors start to 3-4 for really disappointing start to the year. Again, you guys, I was reading the deliberate dumbing down of America on GematriaEffectNews 25, I think, earlier today. And again, you guys, our planned idiocy is over a century in the making. And this is all part of it. Just keeping us well-fed, good things for our taste buds, awesome entertainment, and just to be controlled like we're some kind of commodity, like we're animals on the farm. This book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, what I was reading earlier, she's talking about these members of the Fabian Society creating the Council on Foreign Relations. Read George Orwell's Animal Farm, where he compares humans to animals on the farm and the different classes of animals and where it fits in with our type of society. And read 1984. He knew the future because he was part of the society that created the Council of Foreign Relations, which has a lot to do with world planning and education planning worldwide. And again, they wanted to read, they wanted to teach us, you guys, based on plans that were developed by psychologists for how to control animals that are raised for slaughter. The same psychological practices used on those animals are the same things that these people wanted to implement in schools to control societies for the purpose of nations and states. I mean, think about it. I don't understand why everyone thinks it's a conspiracy theory. It's like, look at the world you live in. I mean, how many of you live in a poor community that's just been devastated for the last 50 plus years or approaching 50 years, and there's never been any real intervention for your community, but then overnight, the actor turned president in Ukraine, this country that's been a nonstop news story from the time Obama was in office, really going back to the fall of the Soviet Union in 91. Of course, Gorbachev, the last leader of this year, died at 91 after I'd been talking about all year the significance of this conflict beginning the week before he turned 91 years old, in light of the Soviet Union collapsing in 91, which separated Russia from Ukraine. Anyway, all this stuff, you guys, it's all connected. So here's what I wrote for the conclusion of this one. Again, I was fearing the 45 thing, so it kept me off the gas. Like, normally I would have just taken the Joe Burrow 54 thing here. But I wrote, close call. There are no strong indicators in this game, but if 45 is a strong pattern this weekend, the Bengals could fall to 4-5. 45 ninth triangular number week 9. In reading that in hindsight, I feel like I should have written that in a different way, because then I actually get into what is actually a strong pattern. I was just saying, in terms of just like looking at the numbers and the stats, there wasn't a whole lot lining up to me in this game. I was just like, I don't see what riddle they're doing in the numbers this week. I didn't trust the one thing from the coach. I want to see something with the quarterback. Sometimes the coach has a really good narrative and I'll write it, but I need more than one indicator of the coaches. They say it's a QB-driven league, and to me, the majority of the riddles are through the QBs. But again, here's what I wrote. The blah, blah, blah thing about 45, I was fearing that pattern in a lot of games this week. But I said, that said, Joe Burrow's career has been defined by the number 54, from LSU to taking the Bengals to the Super Bowl in their 54th season. So him getting the Bengals to 5-4. Again, you guys, go back and see everything I wrote about this number. My book, Number Games, which is free to download. Read the chapter. Again, because downloading my book is an ebook, because then you get the search feature in it. You just need a PDF reader that'll allow you to read an ebook in a PDF. But read the section on Joe Burrow, and I talk about all the 54s with LSU and Joe Montana, and then in the Bengals' 54th season, in the year of the Tiger, which I also talk about in the book, he takes the damn team to the Super Bowl. And he does become 5-4 this year, and it was a blowout game. They destroyed the Panthers as they became 5-4. That number has defined his career. And the Dolphins and the Bears game. Here's what I wrote for this. Again, tight week, but here was the advice. If the Bears upset, they are 4-5 in week 9. Again, we're emphasizing the 45s plus Bears and Miami equal 45. and Justin Fields would become 4-5 at home. They would also give the Dolphins their 18th loss in week 9. Now, those are good numbers with those teams, but you got to look at the other side because sometimes there's a good narrative there. The concern is the Bears could also fall to 3-6 with a loss, and Fields could become 3-6 at home. Bears and Miami equals 36. It might be wise to take the Bears with the points because if Miami does not cover, they are ATS against the spread 4-5. So there's where the 45 could also play. That doesn't necessarily mean the Bears win because there is enough narrative on that other side that makes sense with the Bears to lose and Miami to win as well. So if you took the points, Miami was a 5-point favorite. They won by 3. If you took the points as I advised, which said it looks like the wise move here, you won your bet because they lost by 3. When you take 5 points, that means your team, they can lose the game, but they can't lose by more than 5. If they lost by exactly 5, you would just get your money back. If they lose by 4, you win the bet. So that's why, a lot of football games are decided by a field goal. It's very realistic for a game to end in a field goal, even if one team is seemingly better. That's the magic of the NFL, making it seem like any week, any team has a chance. And sometimes the very worst teams, they beat one of the best teams. It's like the Super Bowl for the fans. And you guys know what it is when you live in these cities. Like when the Seahawks sucked and they beat a big team, everybody's got this huge buzz. Like all the kids at school, yeah, the Seahawks won. I'm up here in Washington State. I'm in Portland growing up. Pacific Northwest only has. That's funny. You look at all the teams on the East Coast; they're densely populated. The West Coast, there's teams out here, but they're all spaced out. Anyway, Portland and Seahawks; those are like 2 of the big franchises, and the Sonics before they went to OKC. Big sports franchises, but just our region. If those teams won, everybody'd be all charged up. They're all into the games. You see how that energy. Remember how all those words equal 74. English, occult, gematria, energy. They're all 74. Holiday, Independence Day. It's like Jesus, cross, Messiah, gospel, parables. Look at how much people believe in their country. Look how much they believe in their religion. Muhammad. All over the place. Jewish 74. Jesus is from Judea, right? Anyway, Gematria is a Jewish practice. By the way, I should have said that earlier in the lesson. All this comes from Kabbalah. Look into the Book of Formation. It says God created the world with numbers, letters, and words. And here, just for this was the first game of Sunday, Chargers at Falcons. So we said close call. On one hand, the Falcons, who have the better value, can drop the Chargers to 4-4 in the state of Georgia. That number does play a lot. It played last week. Remember, Matt Stafford equals 44 like Georgia. Stafford wins the Super Bowl on the 44th day of the year after Georgia wins it. And then Vince Dooley dies this year, who was at the game, who they made a big deal about with his 201 career wins. And if you're new here, soon enough, I'll be done with my 3rd book, which just focuses really on the number 201. And yeah, the organic side of this book is going to really be the 3rd one's the charm, because yeah, it's a whole nother thing to get into, but I got the story of stories. And the Falcons did have a chance to improve to 4-1 at home. That did play for Cleveland in the NBA today, who became 4-1 on the road and now who go 8-1 into the Los Angeles Clippers game, where Los Angeles Clippers is 81. But I go on and I just talk about, recall last year, just the ritual with Georgia and Stafford in 44. I say this game's 38 weeks after Super Bowl 56, where Falcons equals 38. And in addition to that, because again, we're talking about the other LA team, which hosted the Super Bowl. And remember, Super Bowl 56 won by the Rams. The Rams and the Chargers share the same building in LA, in case you didn't know that. Recently built stadium. And in addition to that, and think about it, you guys, major market where, think about it, you guys, just from a marketing standpoint, right? Trying to create fans, because LA is notorious for not supporting their football teams. Now they have a brand new expensive stadium. They got 2 teams to cheer for, twice as much money potential to make. And, they got a team winning it. The more historic team, the Rams, of course. In the oh so significant ritual. But then I write, and in addition to that, And in addition to that, the Falcons can get their 9th win versus the Chargers in Week 9. On the flip side, LA can improve to 5-3, while Herbert gets his 9th career road win, and the Falcons could fall to 4-5. Also, Mariota's next regular season loss is 37. Los Angeles equals 37. That said, Carolina and Chicago equate to 37 as well, and those are his next 2 games after LA. It's interesting, 37. The Patriots also have the 37 connection, and so do the Buccaneers. It is the number, I do believe, that is shared by the most teams in the NFL. The word American is also 37. A very interesting number. 37 is the 12th prime. Brady wears 12. Big number in NFL quarterback history, number 12. The football field, a lot of people think of it as a 100-yard field, but it's really a 120-yard long field. 1, 2, like 12, 0. And that's because there's 10-yard end zones on each end. So it's 100 yards that they go up and down, but those end zones are 10 yards each for a total 120 yards. And 12, like the Zodiac, like the calendar, like how these sports are in accordance with the calendar. So, and then I also made the note about there's a good chance that we could see Mariota go 5-5 into the Bears game for the year, just because Chicago Bears like that number. So, each week, and this thing with Thursday Night Football, again, the same 2 cities, Philadelphia and Houston, playing during the time of the World Series between the same 2 cities. The night of the last game in Philly, as they go down 3-2. Remember, Houston beat Philly the same night, 3-2, to take a 3-2 series lead. In Gematria, Houston equals 32, so does NFL, which has 32 teams. America equals 32, American 37. But anyway, we talked about how it makes sense if the Eagles got to 8-0, because in 1980, like 8-0, they said it was the greatest NLCS of all time, the Phillies versus the Astros, back when they were both in the National League. And again, Vince Dooley, who won the championship with Georgia in 80, he died the day the Phillies won the opener 6-5 when Philadelphia 65. The city established on the day, leaving 65 days left in the year. But anyway, the Eagles become 8-0 this night, right? Playing tribute to 1980, the year these teams met, but this time the Astros are getting the vengeance. And again, I did the stream last night on the World Series, so I'll try not to bore you with it too many times for people who watch them all. But don't forget, it was the anniversary of the Astro World tragedy, and from the day the Astro World album came out, August 3rd, 2018, to that Astros game, that was the Astros' 666th total game, winning in Game 6. 666. And again, Philadelphia named the Church of Philadelphia in the book of Revelation, the concluding book of the New Testament, just like how 666 is talked about in Revelation 13:18. Made this point so many times over the years. So many times. So anyway, Eagles did get to 8-0. They got to 4-0 away. TNF is 40. Big number on TNF. And again, for the conclusion, you're still always looking for a potential upset in a game like this. Like, it can be worth risking $1 or $2 on a game like this just in case. But you just got to be smart about it, because the nice thing about when you have a 13-point underdog, if there are like 3 games that you've done the research, you've looked at all the hockey, there's guys in the community who they learn the knowledge and then they do the additional stuff that I didn't do themselves. They follow international football. They look for it there because they're winning there. You'll see all sorts of people bragging online. If you didn't know, there's become a somewhat competitive group of decoders really going at each other in recent times, and just on social media over who's the best at picking the games through the Gematria. And again, it shows what they did to us in our education system. Instead of teaching us to cooperate, they taught us to compete. And because we're not working together and we're hating, we're not making the same progress that we could. But at the same time, even though it's this world, I feel good about what we've done. I've seen a lot of people come up. Again, there's a lot of people who are loyal. And the reason I've always kept it only $5 a month is not because it's cheap BS knowledge, but because I do want it to be next to free. But like I've always said, if enough people support it in the way it could, well, using these social media platforms, you might never know. Maybe more people are supporting you, and they're robbing you blind. How would you know? You just have to report what they tell you, what comes through the screen. You guys know that my book, that again, you guys, my book, when it first came out, it paid me really well the first 2 months. Not like millionaire well, don't get the wrong idea, but like checks of $10,000. And I was like, wow, if it keeps selling like this or if it gets bigger, this could be big. Because I like the first 2 checks, I was like, man, $20,000 after the first 2 months of sales, that was better than I thought. But then every month from that, it's just been the same amount each month, $200, $200, $200. And it's supposed to be based on the sales. And this has been going on for, the book's been out there for 2 years. And then on the 2-year anniversary, I got paid the day before and I got like 597, which blew me away because I was like, whoa, not 200 the day before the anniversary of it coming out. And again, who knows? Maybe that book's done way better than I know, but I just haven't been paid for it. And that's what happens when you have to chart. You have to self-publish and trust all this. It's just, but what can you do? But anyway, I'm just making the point about how things have been in my life, and then just have people hate and try to discredit and slander you all the time. I just want people to know I put this knowledge out there to help people. Some people, like a guy will make a video about, oh, the Eagles didn't upset. Now, understand, for weeks, we used this because we thought the Texans would end up losing their last 3 or 4 games to get to 1-6-1 versus Philadelphia, because Philadelphia is abbreviated PHI. Phi is the golden ratio in mathematics, 1.61. And they do this number a lot with Philly, 161. What's weird is the Philly-LA connection, and Los Angeles is 161. But anyway, we thought for weeks it would line up because you could tell they were doing something special with the Eagles early in the year. Lincoln Financial Field equals 103. This is the 103rd NFL season. But we could see they're doing so. Remember, the year that it was Eagles-Patriots, we said in week 3, because of what Trump did on September 23rd, taking on the protesters, the date 239, we said, look at that. The flag sewn at 239 Arch Street in Philly. That's the 52nd prime number. It's Super Bowl 52. President equals 52. White House 52. Government 52. Authority 52. Pope 52. The 52-week calendar named after the Pope. All roads lead to Rome. Earth equals 52. Again, you guys, this stuff might sound stupid, but look it up. Enlil equals 52. Flood equals 52. I'm doing these circles for the Earth to make you think about it. 52 for Earth, Pope, Enlil, Devil. They're all 52 in the Bible. In the Bible, it makes the point about Satan ruling over the earth or being the prince of the air. The Pope, this holy authority, using the spiritual influence to build a massive palace in Italy, the land of where all these designer brands are that people pay a fortune for. They worship. That's the thing about our society, you guys. For all the Christians out there that hate me, I would agree. I think it's better. I think it's better to have a Christian society than the one we have now. And understand, you guys, I was raised Lutheran. But when I was 12, I saw how religion divided people, and it made people fight and think they were better than other people. And I saw how people used it as like a way to get out of trouble or to like vouch for something that they really weren't legit about. I just saw the flaws of religion, and I started to think there's got to be a creator, but I think maybe all the religions are a little bit true and some of the things are wrong and some stuff doesn't make sense. And come on, how could that really happen? And maybe, but why should I believe in that? Why did that happen thousands of years ago, but not now? You know, how come I'm praying to this name every night and things aren't changing? But anyway, it never made me think that there wasn't a God. I never really understood the atheist thing. But again, the point I'm making is people used to worship, you know, a creator more, because ultimately that's what the religions will make you do, right? They'll make you worship a creator. And I think it's better if people are thinking there is a creator than not. And I think because you see what we have now. People worship designer brands and celebrities and money. And you see what kind of society that leads to. And of course, these things have coexisted, religion and money. And again, there's a reason that churches don't have to pay taxes. And the Catholic Church was the government of Europe. And we're pretty much modeled after Europe, which the Catholic Church was ruling at the time, whose architecture's all over DC, who have us watching these games in these Roman Colosseums. But anyway, here's what I wrote about this game. You know, special note. Notice the Eagles can become 8-0 against the Houston Texans. My troll will ignore this part of the video, and he'll make like a bold highlight. He'll just skip the whole top post, And it'll be like, there is a potential monster payout tonight if Houston pulls off the miracle of dropping the Eagles to 3-1 away. That pattern does play a lot in Houston, but I referred to it as a miracle because people know for weeks I've been talking about them becoming 1-6-1. But that said, like we have been saying for weeks, there's a good chance Houston ends up 1-6-1 because of Phi, like I just told you, and how they can also fall to 0-3-1 at home, which is also like 31 in Houston, and the Eagles can get to 4-0. So again, that was the much more likely scenario. But again, the beauty of this knowledge is you see that there actually is a chance, and these games do hit. When the Panthers upset the Bucks as 13 or 12 or 13-point underdogs the other week, we thought that was a very great chance. I felt really good about that one because there were some powerful numbers. You don't have to risk a lot of money on these games. To me, things are expensive right now, right? But maybe for you, things are expensive and you do buy lottery tickets and, you wish you had more money. I'm not telling you for sure that you're going to get rich off this. You might look at this and not come to the right conclusions. It's all about the person. There's people who do very well with this information. But the thing is, if you learn to understand what I'm talking about, you start to recognize the patterns that hit for you with your team. When you have a team in your city, you're going to know about their history. You're going to start to pay extra careful attention because you're watching their games. You can just specialize on your team in your city because you're noticing what they're doing a lot. That's the way it is. When you use your own mind with what you learn from somebody else, when you try to become better than the teacher, which is always happening. And that's why I've always said, that's why all people hate me. I've always predicted from the beginning, somebody will find this knowledge who will do better than me because they'll have more knowledge about the sport. They'll be even smarter. And there's people in the world who can make that argument. There's also a lot of trolls and haters that need to just stop. You can't even count how many days Liz Truss was in office. You missed the whole riddle. How embarrassing. Can you imagine dedicating your whole channel to hating on somebody, and then the time you finally put out your own public observation, you didn't even count the number of days right, and you did the whole decode on that? I mean, that's who my critics are. Embarrassing. Should be embarrassed. But he would ignore this, and he would just highlight the sentence about the potential, and he'd say, imagine if you put $100 on the miracle. And it's like, where would I have ever told anybody to put 100? If you watch my streams, I say this type of bet, you can get a great multiplier effect. You can risk a little, like a $5 bill, put it with a few games that you like a lot that day, and potentially make 100. That's a lot better chance of winning than a lottery ticket. And you know what? If you won $100, 100 doesn't go that far in today's world as much as groceries are. I feel so bad for people that have big families. And you see, this is going to curb human behavior. If you're a teenager right now and things are just going to get more expensive, and by the time you get out of high school, it's like, man, you got no alternative but to get something that, I don't know. Actually, never mind. I just drove by a McDonald's in Selah, Washington, and it said starting wage $21 an hour. I was like, damn, 21 starting wage at McDonald's? When my sister, who's 12 years older than me, was in high school and had a fast food type of job, Village Inn for people in the Pacific Northwest, the minimum wage was like $2 an hour. And she was born. That's like the late 80s. So I was like, man, 21 to start at McDonald's? Wow. If anybody wants to live in Selah, Washington and work at McDonald's, and that doesn't sound too bad. I'm not advocating for anyone to work at McDonald's either. Please don't eat their food. How is that corporation on every freeway exit? It's like, oh my God, man. Have you guys watched that movie, The Founder? Because there is the best joke about a Jewish salesman with Catholic Bibles. It just totally reminded me of the formation of the Jesuits. But anyway, my critic would totally ignore this part, and he would just focus on and say, what a misleading post. It's like, dude, we've been talking about this for weeks, and you're just trying to hate on something that was in one clip of the video, or it's just... And then it's so annoying getting trolled every day by people, and just people are so disingenuous. It's the most annoying thing. But anyway, like I wrote it, people already know who've been listening to me what I think, but there's a potential monster payout. Again, I always talk about when you find these 13-point dogs, it's where you can risk $1 to try and win like 30, 40 bucks, $5 to maybe hit over 100. You got to just stick them with a few other good games. But because these teams are such big dogs, if they come through, they turn your parlay into a nice big fat payout. It's kind of like a lottery ticket with a lot higher odds. Because these types of games, these types of tickets and games, you'll probably, over the course of a 17, 18 game schedule it now is, you'll probably hit on these 3, 4 times out of the season. In a good season, you might hit a bunch more. You might hit on a bunch. But I'm just saying, like, I think anybody who's comfortable with the work, who gets it, who knows how to bet, who knows how to read lines, they'll see. That's about right. First season, just from like average feedback, 3, 4 games, they'll hit on a big fat parlay where they get a nice multiplier of like 10 times or better. So think about that. If you had, let's just say you had a $10 bet, because we're doing math here, this is teaching. There's 18 weeks, right? 17 games this plus a bye week now. So there's 18 weeks of regular season to bet on. Of course, playoffs and then Super Bowl, there's more. But the regular season, if your strategy was you were going to bet $10, so you're going to end up betting $180 over the course of the season, okay? You're going to bet $180 over the course of the season. That's what you're going to risk over 18 weeks as an experiment. Imagine that in 14, let's just say 14 weeks, you just flat out lost. But the 4 weeks you hit, you had an average of 10 times your bet. So you won 100 each time. So 4 times you hit, right? So you won 100 each time. So you won 400. In those 4 weeks, you got your money back. You were betting 10, so that's 440. The other 14 weeks, you lost your $10. So that's minus 140, right? Because you lost 14 weeks, 10. So 440 minus 140, $300. You have $300 now from your betting strategy. That's a gain. Imagine had you used that strategy. Like, look, Victor, who's been at it. Victor, again, for people like me, I've told him, like, I'm writing a book. I'm pulling my hair out over it. I'm trying to make it too perfect. It's taken way too long. I should have been done a year ago. I've been doing a lot less sports. But you know what? Last year, I didn't do a lot of NBA. But almost every NBA pick I gave out last year was dead on. And I gave out a lot of free public picks. And the one future I put out that made a lot of sense once the season was underway, as the playoffs were starting, I said, look at what happened on the Pope's birthday, you guys. I've been telling you, it's all synced up with the Pope. Look what happens if the Warriors beat the Celtics. So you could ride all those series through the playoffs, and then Warriors do beat Celtics. That's a nice future. Plus, you hit on, we didn't do a lot of games over the season, but we hit on a very high percentage. Again, I'm only charging $5 a month, and I was also giving people draft copies of the book and getting people's feedback, and I was getting all sorts of feedback, and maybe I listened to too many different people, and then I couldn't figure out how to get the book just right, and then I didn't think it was good enough, and I'm still writing the book. But again, I'm trying to finish the book because I'm close to finish and also get back into the sports for the people who've been begging me all this time. And we've been doing a lot lately, and I'm shaking some rust off, but it's still been a good winning season. If anyone would tell you otherwise, they're lying. And again, just think about what I'm talking about. It's math, you guys. This is no bullshit. This is why there's people that have been loyal for a long time, and it's why I'm buried in the algorithm, deleted, censored, suspended all the time. It's annoying. It's the most annoying thing when you're a YouTube creator, and all of a sudden you come on and it says you've been suspended a week and you have one more strike, or you've been suspended 2 weeks and you have a one more strike because of this video that's from like 4 years ago. And when they deleted my channel the first time, that's what they did. They deleted a channel with over 5,000 videos on it for videos that had been up about how Sandy Hook equaled 112 and Adam Lanza was born on the 112th day of the year, and every single major news publication made a point to say that Adam Lanza was 112 pounds. A 2.5-minute video just showing Sandy Hook 112 and a few other patterns, how it's compared to the Dune Blaine massacre, which got gun rights taken away in the UK, which equals 112, and how the Jesuits operate in 112 countries. And the next thing you know, your video's taken down for hate speech. And you're like, man, hate speech? I just teaching about 112. And then you click the fine print and it says, the hate speech includes cyberbullying of traumatized victims. And it's like, who am I cyberbullying? I am sharing an observation about a news story where they have to let you know that somebody weighs 112 pounds, like it's important on every. When I was still, that was the last year I worked in a school, 2012. I was at a private school in the Bellevue, Washington area where a lot of tech parents are that can afford to have a nice private school. And I got to see, and there's the only year I worked in a private school. I went from working in the poorest school district in Seattle in a failing school where they didn't want people who taught about Martin Luther King Jr.'s A Time to Break Silence speech. They wanted to keep it to I Have a Dream. And that was punished. And, just keeping to the script is what it's just. I already knew school was like that. They don't want people in schools that go against the curriculum and share things with students that might be, well, maybe we shouldn't know about Martin Luther King Jr.'s Beyond Vietnam Time to Break Silence speech because even the president didn't like him for it because he said our military is bringing back this culture of death and violence that's destroying our communities. Look at all the homeless people with the mental problems who can't believe what they've done from being in Vietnam. I mean, is it not true? How many homeless veterans are on the street? Martin Luther King Jr. coincidentally dies 1 year to the day of that speech. He dies on the 95th day of the year the Jesuits created to counter the 95 Theses. The leader of the guy who wrote the 95 Theses is Martin Luther, and that wasn't Martin Luther King Jr.'s birth name. He was born Michael. Martin, by the way, equals 42, like the sitcom Martin, where he lives in apartment 42 in Detroit on the 42nd parallel where Motown's from. But anyway, again, just coming back to the conclusion, if you're new to my work, if you're not as familiar, I could sometimes write conclusions with greater clarity, but I'm just so often, I know that I'm speaking to most of the people who call in are the people I'm thinking about, and I'm thinking like the veterans know exactly how I mean it. There is a potential monster payout. That doesn't mean, whoa, man, I'm going to become a billionaire tonight. I'm betting my whole house. No, that's not at all what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, just like I always say, stay modest on long shot games, especially since it's going against our thought that we've had for weeks. Here's a chance just in case. Maybe $1 to $5 to try to get that big fat one, but no more than that. Skip your next cup of coffee if you lose, because you're probably putting cream and sugar in it anyway, and that's what makes it horrible for you. By the way, all you guys who drink coffee every day, if you want to lose weight, you will be amazed how much weight you lose if you just drink your coffee plain. You will be blown away. You will be flabbergasted. You will not believe that you didn't realize this for all of your life. And then you'll start to realize that you've been drinking these sweet coffee drinks and sweet sugary drinks in the morning for all of your life, so you never really thought about it. It just seems so normal. Every time I go to the grocery store, it's like everybody's got Pepsi and Coca-Cola and everything else like it's going out of style. And they look like they could lose a few pounds. You guys, these sugary drinks are killing everybody. That's more important to know than the sports knowledge. Drink your coffee plain, drink your tea plain. You will be much healthier for it. It's messing up your digestion. All the sugar and stuff, it's like polluting your tract. It's creating bad bacteria. It's making your stomach hurt. It's making you gassy. It's making you have a lot of the health problems and breakouts. It's the sugar overload. Here, I'm going to tell you guys something. I started to think about it a little bit more, and I remembered, because I've always said that I haven't taken any pharmaceutical drugs except for ibuprofen. And you know what? I was thinking about that, and I realized maybe that is not true. The one other, it wasn't for a long time. My mother really wanted to put me on it almost proactively. And it's funny that it was called Proactive, the stuff that was out at the time, because my sister, when she was growing, all my sister ever ate was meat and cheese. She stayed healthy because she was very active, so she was very fit. But all she ever ate was like meat, cheese, and bread, and sardines, and tuna, ramen noodles. She didn't. I had a hunch as a kid that like you should get at least like some kind of vegetables. So I always ate healthier than her, and it could be genetic or instinctual. Or, we have different fathers. We end up being. What's weird is I'm born on 2/17. I'm born on the 21st day of July, or July 12th, 7/12, and she's born on December 7th, 1/27. They're like numbers that are reflections of each other. 7/21, 1/27, and we grow up to be polar opposites. She thinks just like she's just the polar opposite of me. It's amazing. Anyway, but yeah. So again, for a lot of the games and the way I felt, if I think the game's a little bit risky, I'm going to write close call, but I'll write the narrative that I favor. And again, through the majority of these, I was leaning the right way or take the points. the majority of these, the right lean on the game. It would be wise to take the Bears to points in this game. That's correct. Joe Burrow, if you just follow that 54 pattern that we've been talking about year after year, as I wrote a book about. Again, you guys, here, before I get off, do this for me. If you're watching and you're on the fence, read my ebooks. So just go to my website, GematriaEffectNews, and then go to download ebooks for free. And it'll load up this page. You don't have to do anything in terms of payment or submit any information. It just comes to this page. You'll see the green cover, letters and numbers. You'll see the black and red cover, number games, 9/11 to cooties. And for the person not paying attention, cooties is the word they don't want you to say. The thing that a lot of people have been wearing, masks and, getting pokey doked, jabbed. Pfizer's been making record profits. So have other companies in the game. But anyway, just download. You can download letters and numbers. That book is massive. It's nearly 800 pages. It's the first book I wrote. There's all sorts of interesting things, including the chapter on rig sports by the numbers, where I talk about the NBA in 113, talk about the Talmud in 113 in the book, and look at what they just did with Kyrie Irving on 113 November 3rd. Anyhow, the book where I talk about Joe Burrow and 54, number games, 9/11 and coronavirus. Just go in there. This book, and again, for the skeptic, you can also buy this book, and it's for sale at other places besides the one named after the forest they're tearing down. Isn't it kind of ironic? Comes out of trees, books. Amazon started off as a book retailer. Trees are being taken down to write his storybooks. I'm writing forests as I mean to write Zachary K. Hubbard. If you search my name, the book will come up, and there are definitely some hater reviews on here, but it has a apparently 4.7 out of 5 rating. But anyway, you can see what date the book came out. October 13, 2020. Just go back. I'm talking about all about Joe Burrow and 54. If you've been watching my content from then to now, we've been talking about Joe Burrow and 54 and the Bengals 54 season and the Joe Burrow Bowl. Again, last year, Joe Burrow. If you guys don't know this about Joe Burrow, who became 5-4 this week, who won the LSU championship on a 54-date numerology in New Orleans, which equals 54, before being drafted by the Bengals, who Joe Montana beat twice in Super Bowls. Whoops, he got drafted. Yeah, Joe Montana did beat the Bengals twice in Super Bowls. But again, Burrow, he wins the championship with the LSU Tigers. He wins the championship with the LSU Tigers in New Orleans, which equals 54, again, on the 54-date numerology. Then, right after that, you have the 49ers and the Chiefs in Super Bowl 54. That Super Bowl was 54 days after Joe Burrow's birthday. Joe Montana equals 54. His Chiefs versus his Niners. Montana wore 19 with the Chiefs, 16 with the 49ers. He won Super Bowl 16 with the 49ers. In the 2019 season, which concluded with the Super Bowl at the start of 2020, that was Super Bowl 54. The 19 season, the 19 team, the Chiefs beat his other team, the Niners. You see? And then Joe Burrow gets drafted by the Bengals, who he beat in 2 Super Bowls. And again, Joe Montana's 54. And they did a huge ritual with the Steelers and the 49ers in week 3 of that season on September 22nd. The 49ers got their 229th regular season home win all time. And they did it over Pittsburgh. And in the most pure ciphers, Pittsburgh and San Francisco both equal 50. 2 of the most Super Bowl winning franchises. America also equals 50, like the 50 states and 6 territories. And Super Bowl 54 was the 50th Super Bowl of the modern era. Super Bowl 54, the 50th of the modern era. And again, you got the native team again, America, the Chiefs, the 49ers. What's amazing is forwards and backwards, Washington equals 49, America equals 50. Today you have the member of the Gibbs family dead, his ancestor, with Washington, the football coach, Gibbs, Washington 49. Forwards in reverse, 50. Washington's 49 and 50. So is America, 49 and 50. And again, you'll just see rituals with these numbers, but 50 states. When I first learned Gematria and I realized, I was like, wow, that's crazy. America equals 50 and we have 50 states. Unbelievable. And the skeptic will go, well, it wasn't always 50 states, and sometime it'll probably go beyond that. Well, I agree, because as history goes on, there's more history that's added, but there's a reason that this period of time, America is at 50 states. Remember, we got the 50th state, Hawaii. Hawaii is the 50th and final state. You guys want to hear white supremacy? Go back. God, can you even say the truth anymore about what presidents said in the past? The Rough Rider Teddy Roosevelt, he said, if we want to secure the white race, we have to take Hawaii as a military strategy. Otherwise, the Asians will take over the world. And I don't know. I mean, it sounds bad, right? It sounds bad. What if it was true? What if like that military thing didn't happen and all the I mean, think about all the nuclear accidents near Japan. What is really going on, you guys? It's just like, it's hard to know, but you just look at all these details from history. You see these things presidents said in the past. You think about it. I mean, Hawaii is right there by Japan. Pearl Harbor, that was used to instigate World War. At the end of the war, I mean, most of the leaders were alive and well and probably richer than ever. I mean, a lot of their country people were probably dead, but who was there to complain? All the men died in the war anyway. So anyway, the point is, in this book, I'm just talking about Joe Burrow in 54. And we've been talking about it ever since. It's come up several times, and now he starts this season 5-4 after losing in the Super Bowl in the Bengals' 54th season. Okay. And the book was put out before Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl in the Bengals' 54th season. And again, we started to see early in the playoffs, like we thought the Bengals would do some things, but we started to see in the playoffs, like, wow, they have a real narrative to do this Super Bowl, because what everyone missed is Joe Burrow. He started at Ohio State, and he transferred to LSU, where he won the championship over Clemson in New Orleans. And by the way, Clemson equals 81. They fell to 8-1 this weekend, losing to Notre Dame on the very important Jesuit Day, the military order of the Catholic Church. Notre Dame scored 35. Catholic equals 35. JFK, the first Catholic president, number 35, dead on Interstate 35. Anyway, you understand these patterns, you start to get confidence. But again, Joe Burrow in the Bengals 54 season, the day that he transferred to LSU, that was the same day that Billy Cannon died. And Billy Cannon, he also won the championship for LSU, and he beat Clemson in New Orleans, which equals 54. And again, in the NFL, Billy Cannon, he played for the Raiders. He played for the Houston Oilers, who are now the Titans. He played for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was drafted by the Los Angeles Rams. Those are the 4 teams that he has NFL connections to. Those 4. Joe Burrow beat the Raiders. He beat the Titans. He beat the Chiefs. Remember the huge comeback over the Chiefs? No one thought they could beat the Titans. We did. We saw the riddle. And again, for my troll, he'll just focus on he'll go to my post or the one part of the video where I'm talking about and just put the clip of the thing that's wrong and leave out the part that was right that a lot of people went with, because that's where the value was. And then he'll put up a fraud alert, and it's all like well video edited and just total bullshit and just like cut up. I mean, you can use those statements against me, but it's like, if you're not going to show that other half, which was like the part we let off with, I mean, that's totally disingenuous. It's just, you guys, and at the end of the day, I suspect the guy I'm talking about, who's dedicated his whole channel to me, I suspect that casinos on behalf of the bookies union, Anyway, I keep the price affordable, and I expect people to stick around because they're paying attention and seeing it's no bullshit. And a lot of people have done that. And for the people who haven't, again, I think work on something, because I'm getting yelled at a lot of times when the information is not bad. If you look through all my notes, you might have said the one thing that he said he likes today is the Jaguars over the Raiders. I'm going to pump that game. And guess what? That's the game Victor pumped today. So often when I see Victor doing a video, I'm like, exactly, Victor. Victor's game of the day, and I'm just nodding my head. I'm going, sometimes Victor blows me away, though. Sometimes Victor, he has a game of the day, and I was totally torn on that game, and then he had this observation. I was like, damn, look at you, man. Good for you doing it every day right now. He makes me want to shake the rust off more. And that's why I like cooperation and like a friendly competition. Like, I'll give props where it's due. Victor has deserved the props. He's done great for his community. I know he's pissed off some of you guys the way he hasn't. I'll also criticize. I think Victor could have handled his business when he first started his Patreon better with people, because he got a lot of people don't like criticism. I think he got some I don't even want to get into the story, but again, I think for people who got mad at Victor at the beginning, again, you guys look, he's had a lot of people stick around. Victor's a legit dude. He brought out his whole family to New York, and again, they were 3 years ago, they were calling him a conspiracy theorist and say he sounded like a weirdo. Then he saw that he built up a good clientele, and his family sees it and respects it. He's improved his life, and that's nice, because his family's looking at the evidence and changing minds and saying, not only have you changed my mind, I'm going to go out there with you because I'm about it too. So shout out to Victor. Shout out to Simple Truth TV. Him and I've had some bumps and bruises, but again, I got respect for the way he came out and handled the microphone and spoke to the big crowd in Manhattan and at the World Trade Center on 9/11. I mean, I don't know how many public speaking appearances Arthur's done, but if he hasn't done that many, I got to give it to him, because I can speak publicly, but it took me a long time to have confidence to speak publicly. It's difficult to, we all know that thing. I mean, I think we learn it in the school system, because we're like made to get up in front of a bunch of kids where we'll probably get made fun of if we do one thing wrong, and we got to give a presentation on something that maybe we didn't like or care about that much or understand that well, and we feel kind of dumb about it. I think because we had so many of those experiences in school, so many of us, and I know that so many people have that common experience, and that's why a good teacher will try to, help soften that and set like a good. Public speaking, though, is difficult, and some teachers definitely handle the encouragement in that subject better than others. But I'm just saying, Arthur, if he isn't public, maybe he has. Who knows? But he did. He was great. I just thought, man, nice job, Arthur. So, and Victor spoke publicly too and did great. It's just, giving credit where it's due. I'll say, I think Victor, he's he's become very accurate with his picks. It makes me, I feel like his Gematria Papa, and it just makes me happy, but I think where he could, I think he could also grow in expanding. Well, he will grow. I'm not even going to say anything. He's doing a great job, you guys. Support the other people in the work doing the community. No one's charging a whole lot. If you're someone that bets $50 a day and that's who you are, I hope you're winning a lot. But there are a lot of people that can teach you about this knowledge who've been working at it, and you can learn. The more teachers you have, and this is the way to look at it. If you're paying $5 for mine and $10 for Victor's and $10 for Arthur's, almost everybody charges 10 now. I'm just staying old school. I am the original. I think the price is $5 a month, so I just stay right there. And especially in times when times are hard, I want people to have this information. But anyway, if you're subscribed to Ron, $10, let's just say you're learning from 4 different people. It could be confusing, but you'll figure out whose style you like the most, who resonates with you the most, who's helping you the most. And, maybe to afford that $35 a month commitment, just take one day off and say, you know what? I'm not going to gamble today, especially since I've been losing a lot. Let me see if I can learn something about gambling today that might help me out next time, because I am really in a rut. Here, I got to tell you one more thing about football. By the way, somebody gave me an edible in New York in the yellow package. I got to say, top notch. I didn't realize it'd be so potent, you guys. But I was moving yesterday, and I'm getting old, and I was jumping around in the pickup truck, and I was like, man, I don't feel that bad today. But I felt really young and youthful as I was moving yesterday and lifting some heavy objects. And I was like, man, even though I've gotten skinny, I feel like I still got my strength and I'm doing well. But today, from jumping around a little bit more, and like I jumped off the back of the truck, kind of holding something heavy, which was totally stupid because you put shock on your body. I still feel all right, but I feel the source, and I'm like, yeah, getting older, man, almost 40. But sorry, sorry. Anyway, I thought the edible would loosen up my body, and it has. But it's like, man, this thing is strong. So shout out to New York. It's my first time out there, and first edible anybody ever gave me for the city, man. It was well done. So anyway, I'll look up the wrapper later for people in New York and tell you where it came from for people who are interested. I don't have it right now, but it's in the other room. Anyway, this book right here, you guys, it's not just the Joe Burrow thing. In that book, I talk about why. Look at all the stuff they're doing with Tiger. This book came out at the beginning of the pandemic. Okay, I encourage you to read that book in light of what I projected and tell me if you think I'm wrong. A lot of things that I've said in there look highly validated. And I said, watch when the year of the tiger rolls around, they'll wind down this face of the COVID-19 pandemic. As soon as the year of the tiger came around, it was still wintertime, and London leads the way with Boris Johnson saying all the protocols and lockdowns, it's now relaxed. They're still going to encourage you, but no longer are the mandates in place after a huge percentage had already complied. And again, you go back and look at everything we were documenting. All the celebrities are wearing tigers. Trump's calling it the China virus. The Chinese calendar has the zodiac. There's patterns in history with the Chinese zodiac. The year of the tiger comes around, the COVID-19 pandemic, they start to wind it down. And again, it just shows rituals. That's what I'm trying to show people. These rituals, this knowledge, this Kabbalistic code, these orders, and if you learn the information, you'll see the benefit in so many ways. You will not be so sucked into the sports game. You will not be so sucked into the politics. It's like you're freeing yourself of unnecessary stress. A lot of these things are ultimately stressing people out. The emotional highs and lows of their team winning. How many people have broken something in their life because their team lost a game, especially in a frustrating way, in a big game where you can't believe it happened again? Oh my God, how did the ref make that call? Come on. After all that, the ref's going to make that call and just totally ruin the game. Now they got an easy field goal. That's the new thing in the NFL. 25 seconds left. It's like a gamble on who's going to win the game. It's like back in the day, come on, 25 seconds left. You got to go the length of the field. That's what I mean, too, the length of the field. Look at what they just did in the Falcons-Carolina game. And thank God they did, because I really like the Falcons to win that game. And I just had a feeling on that Hail Mary. I was like, watch this. They could score. And then I was like, oh, my God, they tie it. I was like, man, if they kick this extra point, they'll have 35 points, and everybody will be 3-5 in the division, the big Tom Brady number. And notice the Rams fell to 3-5 versus Tom Brady. I've been calling 35 the Tom Brady number. My first book, Letters and Numbers. Download it. Oh, shoot. Oh, my goodness. Okay. I realize I got the wrong tab up again. I apologize. Anyhow, number games. You can download this book for free. Just go to GematriaEffectNews. GematriaEffect.news. First pin post. Just scroll down. Just keep scrolling down until you see download ebooks for free. Click it. Number games. I talk about Joe Burrow and 54. Just read that. Maybe search through my blog, because I've been documenting the other 54s. Most of it are in the Patreon support. That's the worst thing about the downside of the time that more of it's private is, like, sometimes it's harder to go back and find the thing because it was just a private post that I shared with the sports community. But again, we've been documenting these patterns, and that's what it is, guys. Some people say that intelligence is pattern recognition. So if somebody makes fun of you for being intelligent enough to recognize patterns, and the thing about paying attention to things like this is it having a benefit in your life? If all of this was just nonsense and it was just like number schizophrenia And every week we were just wrong and wrong and wrong and proving ourselves wrong week after week. And nobody else had ever learned this and been able to teach it and change their life and quit their day job, as a number of people have done in this world now in the time I've been teaching this. And a lot of people have been able to write the story like, oh my God, Zach, I really like those. There was a weekend where we had all these big dogs in college and they all nailed. There are people who bet like $50 and made a few thousand. And just like weekends like that, you get tons of mail like, Zach, I was feeling it too. I put 50 down and I won 1,500 and I've been trying to save this up and I finally got my car out of the shop. You know, that is the power of this. It's not to become a gambling addict. It's not to become greedy and addicted. It's this is a knowledge. And you know what? Maybe I'm going to stop with the lottery tickets. I haven't won with the lottery yet. Maybe instead of trying to become an overnight millionaire, I should apply my mind to this knowledge and see how it's used in the world of gambling, since I like to gamble, and switch up my methods. Some people just keep going to the roulette machine because they like roulette, because they won that one time and got $1,500. But let's not talk about the last 10 times we went to Vegas. And man, I can't believe I've never lost $500 faster. Let me pull another one. Damn it, damn it, damn it. Wow, $50 in 5 seconds. You know, I'm teaching people to be smart. Bet $50 a month. You can pull $50 in the slot machine and look like a jerk off, or you can take this knowledge with $50 over the month and maybe multiply it into, as many people have done, 10 times and better. You know, sometimes there's a really sweet riddle and you can just read it through the games through the season. Those have been our best years. We just really lock into what they're doing with the team and just keep riding it. And it's just like, people are like, man, I just started playing that team all year. I won every weekend but twice. So anyway, you're your own man. You got to use your own minds. And I realize, again, every time I go on to anything, it clicks onto a new. It's so annoying. I wish it would just stay in the tab. When I click on something, it's putting in a new tab. But yeah. When you find this page, download the books, read about sports by the numbers, think about what they just did with Kyrie, 113, again. Think about the coronavirus pandemic on March 11th, 113. Read about it in number games, where coronavirus pandemic equals 113, where the National Basketball Association's 113, where Kobe Bryant's 113, Utah Jazz 113, the only team in the NBA that has a 113 for the full name, which is the 30th prime, like there's 30 teams in the league. Again, you guys, Kobe dies right as the whole COVID thing's kicking off in China. They bury him in Corona del Mar, which in Gematria equals coronavirus, which equals COVID vaccine, which equals Anthony Fauci, which equals Gavin Newsom, which equals Society of Jesus. Gavin Newsom and Fauci are members of the Society of Jesus, Jesuit educated. And Gavin Newsom said, California will get coronavirus, or he said 56% of California will get coronavirus in 8 weeks, which is 56 days. And then you had the other Jesuit governor, Cuomo, who was the 56th governor of New York, who was like the mayor of COVID for all of the nation, on all the news all the time, who had best-selling books coming out and all this. And he went to Fordham like Trump, who's also Jesuit educated, and Trump's Jesuit education began in 1964, 56 years before 2020, the year of COVID. And then right after Super Bowl 56, with the year of the tiger, COVID just ends. Nobody had time to notice. They were too ready for the NFL draft in the upcoming season. You know, maybe it's finally going to be the Browns' year. But yeah, you know, again, you guys, I make the work free and super inexpensive for something that is super valuable, super consistent. And again, if you take the time to put in the knowledge, it's like, again, there was only one game this week where I wrote the words, I like. One, and it came through. You know, you use the knowledge, and that's why Victor, who's sticking with this method, he's going through a lot of sports games each day. He's putting in a lot of work to find one game that he feels really good about. He's putting in all that work on a lot of games, and then he's coming to his audience and he's saying, this is the one I'd invest in today. And over 70% through the whole MLB season, doing that each day, he was able to get a winner. Over 70%. That is a winning percentage. And think about that. I don't know if Victor heard it from me or he came up with it himself. He might have realized it himself. I think if you use this knowledge, you start to think about it. There's all these ways to invest. And again, I don't want you to think of gambling as something that should become, something that dominates your life. It can cause all kinds of stress and problems. And people do have addiction and they're not disciplined. And gambling can ruin people. Alcohol can ruin certain people. You have to know your limits. You have to know yourself. If you're an addicted person and you get into trouble with things, and you're the type of guy who just knows, like, if you were up 5,000, you have to bet it all because you want 50,000 that night. And then you are the guy who'd be mad and have to drink and get upset because he lost it all in one night again after he was up. If that keeps happening and you keep doing it, I know these people exist in the world. That's not on me. You got to stop being a fool. I'm telling you, all of my critics are fools. They want to hate. They want to try and paint a picture. They want to assume things that aren't true that other people said about me. Again, you guys, in the time I've had books, I've made them free. I've allowed other people to put covers on my books and sell sections of it on other social media platforms. I've allowed people to. There's a gentleman right now who he's working on an audiobook version with his own details. And I said, man, you can mention that it's based on my book, but I don't care if you make it seem like it's all yours. If you're going to make a really sweet audiobook and do it right, and that's what your specialty is, and you think you have some interesting commentary to put on top, your project. If you just give me maybe just a little name drop somewhere, like it's based on a book by Zachary K. Hubbard, and this is my take and my presentation of it. I wouldn't care because ultimately you're getting the knowledge and information out there. And that's what I've said from day one. I am here to wake people up from this coma we're in because we are being ruled over by psychopaths who are leading us to self-destruction. I've been saying that from day one. That's my purpose of being here. It wasn't ever. That's the thing that makes me sad. That's everything I got to close out with. The point of this work wasn't ever to get people to be good at gambling or to want to gamble more or even make money off knowledge. But I found out that's what people help spread the word. And then I started getting the feedback that, you know what, Zach, I started looking at other things you're talking about. And I'm thinking about that now. I'm being more conscious about that. And it just reminds me, you got to reach people. If you can just reach them and build a level of trust and they ride with you and they start to realize, like, man, he's helped me out here. I have taken these health tips. I'm doing better there. Stop putting junk in your tea and sugar. You're messing up your whole day by starting the day with that in your system. Your body is a system. And if there's certain stuff that, imagine if they sold a type of gasoline at the store where your car would run down the road, right? But the whole way it would make like big, huge black puffs of smoke and it would run a little choppy. But you know what? You could get down the road and you know what? A car's meant to last 100 years, but man, if you put this in it each day, you'll get at least 40 out of it and you'll save a whole bunch at Kroger. Your car's going to run like, your car's going to run like that, like it's just farting down the road, but it's real cheap. Again, you putting this junk in your body in the morning, that's exactly what you are doing. That's exactly what you're doing. You're just setting your day up for failure. And we were taught to eat junk food in the morning through kids' cartoons, you guys. You got to think about that. Read the first, or go listen to what I just read. You know what? I might even just do a shortened version of just reading key points of the deliberate dumbing down of America. But again, you guys, we live in a society that was planned by very wealthy people who controlled industry, who became so powerful they could control politicians and what was put in history books and what was put in school curriculum because they wanted a population that would serve their mega corporations that they could already see how they could span the earth because they were already developing worldwide connections through the oil industry and where drilling's going on and the exchange between automobiles and oil and how countries work together for political purposes. And it's funny how in the age of Trump and him accusing of conspiracies and all this conspiracy theory, demonization, well, it's like, I really don't like the phrase conspiracy theory. A conspiracy theory, when I started this research, it was a conspiracy theory. It was, is Manly P. Hall right about this knowledge of gematria? Is this why I'm seeing the number patterns in everything in the media? Is there, are they doing something more with numbers than I've ever understood from what I've learned in my years of school and from the people I've known? And you have to read. And that took me over 10 years to answer that question. Over 10 years to answer the question, how or why or what is it about the numbers and the patterns? And lo and behold, a book written in 1926 by this man who wanted to share knowledge with the world, who's now demonized by a lot of people. It's like people who weren't alive back then, they want to demonize him and say, oh, he was a bad person and he was trying to take people away from Christianity and Jesus. He was just trying to share knowledge, and his research showed him that the Bible was astrotheology. If you want to say that means he's an evil person, I don't know about that. If ultimately Jesus is the truth, and I'm open to the possibility that Jesus is the truth, to me it seems unlikely based on my life experience. But I have seen some weird things lately that got me. I told you guys a story about the other week about meeting Jesus, who didn't want to go by that. He wanted to go by Jesse because people always call him Jesus, and he gets offended when people refer to him as Jesus. So he wanted to be called Jesse instead. And then at the end of that week, I met Luciano. And then I didn't even tell you, but when I got a haircut for the first time in this town, um, the woman who cut my hair, her name was Helda, and I was like, wow, okay. What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of this? So I am actually really considering that in my life. I'm like, what if a lot of my critics, the reason they always try to undermine me is because they are of Christianity and they don't like that I don't have the same exact spiritual beliefs as them. Again, to me, I'm all about Jesus' teaching of the golden rule. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. Make your life about purpose, helping others. Imagine if everyone lived that way. We would live in a better world. In parts of my life, I violated that rule, like when I worked in real estate and was taking advantage of a corrupt market and knowing it was wrong, but being told by everyone in my life, just keep doing it because it's really good money and it's hard to get ahead in this world. I went against what my inside told me every day for like a year. What I knew that was wrong, but because I was getting paid, well, I kept doing it. So as someone who kind of has the idea of like redemption, I decided to go back to school to do something. I thought, like, well, if at least I go teach in the school system, which I know is bankrupt, maybe I can make a difference in some children's lives. And the time I went back to school, I worked at a group home for minimum wage. I made too much money, I thought, in real estate. I thought, why not work for minimum wage in a group home and help out some children that really need a positive influence in their life? And I have some of the best memories from my life from helping the children in that group home. But it was also an unpleasant environment to see the children have to live in such a place where there's so much trauma and the way medications are given to these children, and some of them how they're like put into like a zombie like state because they're violent because of what's happened to them. So what the state does, who has custody, is just kind of sedates them. And it's like, man, I'm not sure this is. I don't like you really start thinking about, like, okay, you read their CPS report and like literally some parents are literally pimping out like their young children. It's amazing. Money. Oh my God. It's that song, man. The same people. OJ's sang backstabbers, didn't they? Oh, probably a sick joke. But they got the song about money. Make, you know, people sell their body and everything else. Anyway, I guess they're children's bodies. But yeah, again, that's why I'm just saying, you guys, maybe it was better when everyone had like this belief in creator rather than just like worshiping materialism and celebrities who are, have all the fame and all the stuff that they want and all the jewelry and whatever else. And you just see what happens when that becomes the normal value system. It's just like, I don't know, man. It's like, it's bad. It's where we are. So yeah, shout out to New York City again. You guys, we got to do 9/11 again, and we do have to do it bigger. And I will definitely fly out next time. I learned a life lesson. Tolls, blowing out tires. You guys, when I was in New York, it was the craziest thing. If you guys, it was just downpouring. It was crazy. It was like, it felt like it was flooding. It was raining so hard. It was It would have been very early in the morning. It probably started to rain late September 12th and just started to really downpour early September 13th. And we were coming back from New Haven, Connecticut, where we were checking out Yale and Skull and Bones, and it was wild. Here's what was wild about it. This is a totally true story, and there's also people who can vouch for it, including shout out to Jeremy White, who was in the car. And again, we're going down 84th Street, and it's raining so hard. We're almost back to the destination, and I'm making a left turn through an intersection. And as we go through it, I think it even woke up the people in the back seat. That there was a mother and daughter back there, and another gentleman. He was in the back seat, and I want to say they were asleep. Jeremy was awake. It was crazy the way it was raining, you guys. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. It was so, I had to drive so slow on the freeway. Most people were pulled over, and it put us on this route. It took us off the highway, I think, because of all the water. And it took us on this route, and it put us down 84th Street, right? And what was weird is while I was just at New Haven, Connecticut, I said, I don't know if I ever paid attention to the fact that New Haven, Connecticut equals 84. And it was established in 1684. And Yale is older than the United States of America, where all these secret societies are. And what's amazing is Skull and Bones equals 41. It's the most famous secret society at Yale. And there's 41 secret societies there. Like, again, Skull and Bones equals 41. And George Herbert Walker Bush, number 41, was a member of Yale Skull and Bones, the 41st president. The last time we really saw him in public, he was on the field when the Astros won the 113th World Series shortly before his death. And the Astros just closed out the 118th World Series, winning 4-1, like 41. When you spell out 41, it equals 118, like George Herbert Walker Bush. Again, like ossuary. And again, that's where Skull and Bones gets its symbolism from. But anyway, there's just so many things to teach. And for the person who actually did watch this video from start to finish and could put up with all the wrong screens I had up, but actually listen to what I was saying in the narration. Some people will just listen to this like as a podcast. They're going to do the best with this video because I did a terrible job with the video screen. But for the person who watched it from start to finish and who's absorbing the information, again, download the books. If you want to start doing your own calculations, GematriaEffect.news, my website has a calculator. There's a free app to download for all platforms. Just go to GematriaEffect.news. If you guys are new here, again, under the website, on a cell phone, there's probably a drop-down menu, but you'll go to calculator, and then when the calculator page loads, you do have a calculator. I'm on a really slow internet connection right now because I'm using my hotspot. But you'll have the base ciphers here, and then down just below you'll have the apps that you can download. And the calculations on this website, GematriaEffect.news, they're the same calculations as the website Gematrinator.com, which again, Derek, who built this calculator, he came along as a skeptic and was trying to prove me wrong. And then he realized there was a lot of legitimacy to the work. He got so inspired, he built this website. And in the early days, I advised that he set it up so that when you do a calculation, again, you get these four values. Because I was realizing, you guys have to understand, the two ciphers on the left were Houston's 112 and 31. In the World Series, Houston just became 11-2 in the postseason, winning the World Series. And the Phillies, they picked up their 31st road playoff loss. 31st road playoff loss of their franchise history. And earlier in the week, we were talking about the death of Takeoff. Most pure cipher, Takeoff is 28, edit 28. And he was born the year the Rockets won their first championship, 94, 28 years later. He died in Houston, home of the Houston Rockets, one day before the 4-year anniversary of his solo album, Like a Rocket. And Rockets equals 28. But again, Houston, 112-31, also 77. Houston just won the World Series, and I believe it was their franchise picked up the 77th postseason win. If I'm mistaken about that, it's with Dusty Baker, but I'm pretty sure it was Houston that picked up the 77th postseason franchise win. And again, where Houston's 32, the night they took the advantage, they were down 2-1 because they lost the opening game. They won the second. Then Philly won the first game in Philly, going up 2-1. Then Houston tied it, and they took the lead 3-2 in the series, winning 3-2, Houston did, on the night that the NFL game was Houston versus Philadelphia. And again, NFL has 32 teams, and NFL's 32, like America, right? Like Scottish. Look into the Jesuits, who created modern Freemasonry, who created the Scottish Rite, who share the Ad Merum Dei Gloriam motto with the 32nd degree of the Scottish Rite. There's a method to their madness. America was established on a date with 32 numerology. America's got the 50 and 49 as well, like Washington. Washington was a Freemason. You see how America's 139? Freemasonry's 139. 139 is the 34th prime number. Free is also 34. There's more to say about that, but just an interesting thing. Who's really free in this society? Seemingly not us. We're stamped with a number. We're put into slave school, and we're taught to be good consumers who don't have a lot of logic or skills or knowledge, and who are supposed to really know stories and have a lot of pride about Christopher Columbus. And well, it's changing in modern years, but just again, be prideful about our history and just tell ourselves we're the greatest ever. And again, I mean, there is a lot to be proud of in America, right? There is ingenuity and creativeness and world-changing ideas and corporations, but again, it's a lot to explain. But again, just to appreciate the ciphers. Washington 49 and 50, like America. Washington 130 and 140. Again, on Washington State's birthday, November 11th, Pete Carroll picked up his 130th regular season win and 140th all-time win, upsetting the 49ers in a primetime game when the Seahawks were big underdogs that night. Washington's birthday, perfect ritual. There's been a lot of perfect rituals with Pete Carroll, even synced up with when Paul Allen, the old owner, died. Synced up with old Bill Gates. And there's been plenty of rituals synced up with the Washington teams in 49 and 50. But again, that's how you can realize that the knowledge is true. The only way somebody's actually going to realize that what I'm saying is true is if they look into it and pay attention to it and don't jump to premature conclusions. Stick with the knowledge, pay attention, watch night after night, be aware of the numbers, and then just sit back and laugh at ESPN. You're like, are you serious? That number again? Because once you recognize it, once it's in your consciousness, you're like, man, again. Think about it. Gibbs, who coached for Washington, now his son's dead at 49 tonight. And he's dead on the day, leaving 56 days left in the year when NASCAR equals 56. On the same day that Aaron Carter is dead 56 months after his last album. You know what I mean? It's about, and that's the thing too. If children in this world start growing up in a world where they're not idolizing celebrities and wanting to be the next pop star or superstar athlete. I mean, it's good to have ambitions and goals, but be realistic, but not with the expectation that that's probably what's going to happen for me. I'm probably going to be world famous in the celebrity, because I think a lot of Americans, they're doing the Hollywood dream, whether they live in Hollywood or not. I remember my nephew. I have a nephew he's a young rapper. He's in college now. I don't know if he's keeping the hobby in college, but for a minute, he thought he was about to become world famous. And I just said, have tempered expectations. And I said, I can only say so much because my sister doesn't want, it's sad. My sister's like my second mom, and she's older than me. And because it's her children, I respect it as much as it bothers me. And that's why it's hard for me to be around my sister, because she doesn't want me to share any type of valuable information. It doesn't even have to be Gematria. She just wants to get, my sister wants to read Martha Stewart, Oprah Winfrey. I don't want to talk about it, man. It's just, anyway, it's like my nephew. He wants to be like a hip hop star, right? Or when he was in high school, he did, just like so many other high school age students do. And it's like, would you really want to be that bad if you knew what I was showing? He doesn't know anything about my work because my mom, or not my mom, his mom keeps it all away from him, who again is my much older sister. She's born in 71. I'm born in 83. And I just think of the kind of the irony of it because they were really young. He was really young when I first found this knowledge, and his mom's thought it's just the biggest load of nonsense the whole time. But I was thinking, God, had he learned a little bit about this, he might have realized with his own mind that this indeed is an undeniable pattern. He'd know about how all these years we've been talking about dead rappers in 38. He'd be seeing it with his own eyes all these years. Are you sure that's the kind of industry you want to become famous in? When so many of these guys don't even make it out of their early 20s, they're lucky to even approach 30. You even made it part of the way into being age 27. It's like a long life expectancy to make it to age 27. How are you going to be in the 27 club when nobody makes it there? So, yeah, but I just think about the irony of it because I'm like, man, maybe he would have like a more realistic ambition than being a rap star right now. That was all he wanted to be. He was in total rebellion mode in high school. He was just going to make it with the rap career. And it's too bad. When he was a little boy, he was this. I don't want to talk about it, but he was the sweetest little boy. He put up his big brother always needed to be number one, and his big brother is just physically bigger than him, plus older, and just needs to be number one. The younger brother, he took a lot of whoopings from big brother, and I don't know what parenting my sister was reading, but it was like let the number one be the alpha and in charge. And I was like, I don't know about this because he's gonna grow up with some resentment. Well, he rebelled when he was in high school. Man, he spray painted their whole house. He went graffiti on the inside, outside of the house. He did some damage with some sports instruments to the house. It's like, man, your kid, you've traveled them all over the world. My sister married into wealth. And yeah, I just think, man, it's like you've been saying, it's like, man, had you taught your kid about what I was trying to show the world, he might not be into all this and being influenced by all this and rebelling like this in your house. She still can't see it, you know? She's going to church on Easter and Christmas and calling herself holier than thou because I don't want to go. She thinks it's wrong that I don't go to church on Easter and Christmas. I don't want to go. I don't want to participate in the ritual. I mean, I could go to here. You know what I want to hear when I'm done with this video? You know what I really want to hear from people who watch this all the way through? Well, I do always tell myself I got to figure out how to become a better person because, like I told you, man, it's weird. I met Jesus, I met Luciano, and I met Helda, and I have like the biggest conversations with these people when I move to this new town. And the first two were within a week, and then Helda was like a week later. And I'm just like, what is again, it reminds you, if the Bible is if the I do think there's a lot of truth in the Bible, but it talks about how there is an afterlife and it's a very narrow gate to get through. There's a lot of stories of people who think that they did well in this world, but they didn't do well enough. And sometimes I wonder if I could be one of those people. I feel like if I had to answer to God, I would have to answer for continuing to do the real estate job for a year when I knew it was wrong. And I would say, the only answer is myself and everyone around me is just too over influenced by money. But then I say, but don't I get some redemption for working in the group home for minimum wage and going back and teaching in the poorest school and trying to make things better? And then, I guess for all the people that hate me who didn't take my advice and blame me for the $50,000 game they lost on, you've never heard me in my life say bet anywhere near that. I would say be the tortoise, be modest, gambling, make it so it feels like it's a fun hobby that you win at. And when you lose because you're used to winning, it doesn't beat you up too much inside, you know. But yeah, I mean, some people they just get too greedy. That's why that's why again the Bible, you guys, the Bible. There are a lot of stories in there where if you think about them, I mean, there are some stories where you're like, what? Come on, man. Seriously, that was God's. That sure sounds like some petty man rule. But then there are other stories in there that make you really think about things, and then you reflect, and you're like, well, yeah, maybe not good enough. you got to get better. So anyway, shout out to New York City. The edibles are intense. My, I think actually what could be better if there was more CBD in it. And CBD is the thing. Like CBD doesn't make you high, but it takes away pain and just makes your body feel. Again, for all of you guys who think like marijuana is some new hippie medicine that only the New World Order is pushing, that there is something to these big chemical businesses getting into marijuana. But the thing about CBD is that product works. It takes away pain. I don't know anyone that has side effects to it. I mean, you can rub it on. It's not something you have to be swallowing. I mean, if you have a really sore spot, you rub some on. I mean, I was blown away the first time tried out CBD. I couldn't believe how effective it was. And that's no bullshit. And a lot of people will tell you the same thing. And when you eat it, it goes through your body. And again, like, your body, it's not like it just numbs the pain. It actually feels like your body gets a little more fluid back. So maybe I don't feel even as more relaxed actually because of the wear and tear I put on my body yesterday, acting like I was 10 years younger than I was. But yeah, if anything, the person who gave me the edible in the yellow package, and I just think maybe a little more CBD and maybe a little less THC. It's strong, but thank you, thank you. Somebody said long ago when I told somebody like that, they're like, Zach, don't ever eat one of those again. It could be poison. I don't like to go through the world like that, you guys, being paranoid. And I mean, like in this case, it was professionally wrapped. It looked totally legit. But I suppose, you just never know, right? CIA, just who knows? I just feel like it's disingenuous though, because then you're going through life with like the mentality that the authorities have that everyone's a criminal, everyone's bad. I know you can't be naive, but at the same time, it's like if people don't weird you out and everything looks above board, I'm sure they just brought you the nice edible because they thought it would be nice. And I'm pretty sure that's what this was, but wow, New York City. So, all right, you guys, but yeah, I went way over time and I just wanted to give a nice long lesson. And what I was also hoping is that Cousin Mar would call in. I hope Cousin Mar's all right. He was supposed to call in tonight, but I was just thinking he would call in at some point in this live stream because he wanted to share a story with the community. And you never know, things come up in life. So if he can't do it tonight, we'll do it later. But I kept looking down at the phone because the phone has had activity. It's just I haven't seen the name that I was also expecting. So we'll save that for another one. And yeah, I hope for somebody new that finds this, they will find the information beneficial. Here, I will take one call. I don't think this is Cousin Mar, but hello?
Hey, Zach, I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. next week. So if there's anything that you want me to do, you can tell me now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just whatever you want to research. Whatever looks curious to you, I would like for you to just research it. And, if you want to just like pull out your phone and do like a little screen recording and just record a plaque on the wall with the numbers and say, look at this building. I did a lot of things like that when I was on the road in cities, just documenting things that stand out in the city, with strong numbers that we've seen so many times throughout history. So I think that'd be a cool little project while you're in Washington, D.C. Or if you don't want to present it, you can, you can just journal it down or just make a post about it or however you want to do it.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing a video, like just showing like narrating over, over the video and like, hey, look at this thing, look at how this thing's coded, look at where this is, stuff like that. But I just wanted to give you a warning, Zach. Every food, because you could get food poisoning from it, so it's usually a really bad idea to eat food.
Cut out. It's a really bad idea to eat food. Cut out.
Yeah,
What? Oh,
you
you
could
cut
eat
out.
that
It's a
food
really
poisoning.
what did you say? It cut out right when you said it's a really bad idea. It just cut out.
I said it's a really bad idea to eat food because you could get food poisoning from it, so you probably shouldn't do that.
Food from what?
I'm just joking because you're saying about fear earlier.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry if it cut out. God, one thing I want to say is it's not you getting old, Doc. Everybody's forgetting stuff now. Me, my dad, people's friends.
This young guy's too smart. When he calls in, they're like, "We got to block it." He's got the $1,000,000 observation again. He's a young, free mind. But yeah, that you. Oh no, he started to come back and his call dropped out. Poor guy. It's okay. I got to get off, but I'll finish up your thought. Again, you guys, what if you look into like Bill Gates in 2010 at his TED Talk, he mentioned geoengineering to curb climate change, which is spraying in the skies to block out the sun, so there's less of a greenhouse effect. And the question is, okay, maybe you're reducing greenhouse emissions by doing this, but what about the chemicals that are being sprayed in the sky? What are the long-term consequences of that? Have we researched that enough to think that it's right for us to do this to fix this? Are we sure we're not creating another problem by doing this? And the thing is, there's metals like barium in the geoengineering. And it's funny that that's the 56th element in climate change equals 56. Again, you guys, they said the silver lining of coronavirus, which equals 56, like climate change, was that it helped realize some of the Agenda 21 and 2030 goals due to reduce travel and reduce consumption. So they said that was one of the nice things about the pandemic. It actually helped out with some of the climate change goals. And think of when you think climate, you think Paris Accords, Paris, France equals 56, like Society of Jesus, like coronavirus, like COVID vaccine, like climate change, like Anthony Fauci. And again, the list goes on. You just think about it. The number, you think it's arbitrary? Yesterday on the day, leaving 56 days left in the year, the NASCAR guy's dead, and NASCAR's 56. And again, Nick Carter's dead 56 months after his last album came out. I mean, we download these books for free if you can't afford to pay $5 for them. The ebooks are $5 or free, whatever you prefer. And I ultimately prefer that the knowledge gets out and the world changes. So if that's everything's got to be free, then I guess that's what it's got to be. But if it's $5, some people value something more if they pay for it. It makes them want to read it. Somebody gets it for free and they're like, I'm going to save that on my hard drive and watch a few more movies and play this video game, and then maybe I'll take out 5 minutes to see if I like the book. And that's why I try to write all the books so that it grabs you from the beginning. And I think if you guys do read the books that I've written, you'll find that they're helpful and informative. And the things I've written about have proven themselves many more times over. So anyway, thank you to everyone who does support the work, who's read the book, who shares the knowledge, who set up their own platform to promote it, teach it, try to change their life off of it. Again, that's the whole goal. That is the whole goal. All right, Trustic, I got to get off. Congrats to people who played it smart today. I'm feeling it. Well, it was probably a good day, even though overall it feels like it could have been better. So yeah, we'll leave it there. And let me make sure Cousin Martin try to get in here. Shoot. Well, we will connect with Cousin Mar whenever he does become available because he has a very interesting story to tell. I've been engaging with this man for over 2 years, and I had no idea how interesting his story was. And again, he's a positive story. Could be inspirational for other people that need that kind of inspiration in the world. But I'll wait till we got him on, and we will share it then. So have a good night, Truth Seeker. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time.